Chapter 1857. This was the first time Nan Yixing and Mu Hanch had met. Although they appeared respectful on the surface, their hearts were filled with their own thoughts. Walking out of the side hall, Mu Hanch stood in the snow, his heart still beating violently. She seemed to have grown up after not seeing her for so long. When he looked in her eyes, she no longer fled in panic, but faced him head-on. Another man stood beside her, tightly holding her hand, declaring his sovereignty over her. For some reason, this was the first time he felt as if he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. The intense pain in his heart made him realize for the first time how important that girl was in his heart. Or perhaps his entire life and soul was trembling because of her. "Prince Nan, you've been in the snow for a long time. Don't catch a cold." Eunuch Li softly muttered behind him. Only then did Mu Hanch regain his senses. He took a deep breath and sighed. "There's no need to follow me. There's no need for the umbrella." As his voice fell, he stood with his hands behind his back and walked into the snow. As the cold wind blew, countless snowflakes hit him in the face. He suddenly felt a suffocating feeling, so painful that he couldn't breathe. He didn't know how long he walked in the snow. Only when the numbness in his feet overshadowed his heartache did he slowly stop. At this moment, Mu Hanch realized that he didn't want Luo Qingshun to go back, no matter if it was the Nanzhao kingdom or by Nan Yixing's side, even if he didn't achieve his initial goal. At the same time, in the Mu Shui Hall. This was the side hall that Mu Hanch had arranged for them. It was very close to the main hall. For dinner, Luo Qingshun tried one dish after another before she dared to let Nan Yixing eat. There shouldn't be any poison. Luo Qingshun put the silver needles into the brocade pouch and looked up at Nan Yixing. "Let's eat." Before her voice fell, his right hand instantly hooked around her waist. Without giving her the slightest time to react, he kissed her without hesitation. With a scorching entanglement and absolute dominance, it devoured all of her thoughts layer by layer, and she fell into a world of chaos. She closed her eyes, her long eyelashes trembling slightly. Between his breaths, she could feel his extreme gentleness, as well as a touch of sadness. Luo Qingshun didn't know why she had this feeling, but it was real. Only Nan Yixing knew how conflicted he was. If I let go of everything to love her, what kind of ending will it be? He didn't know. He only knew that she couldn't go back. She absolutely couldn't go back to the Nanzhao kingdom. There was still a part of the story from 400 years ago that had not been passed down to the common people, and that was the heavenly spirit flower array itself was an evil spirit array. It was an evil spirit array that required the saint to sacrifice every 400 years. Otherwise, the sky and earth would change color, the sun and moon would lose their light, and a sandstorm would quickly submerge the entire Nanzhao kingdom. Everyone would die. The purpose of the saintess' existence was to prevent this disaster. Some stories ended too quickly, and there was no time to see the ending clearly. He knew her identity from the day she entered the Star Palace as an assassin. She was Mu Hanch's secret guard, the saintess of the Wu people. He knew everything. He even knew that her purpose in coming to the Nanzhao kingdom was to die for him, but he still hoped that she didn't have any identity. He only wanted her to stand by his side and become his only bride. He could madly pamper her with everything in his life. As long as she was happy, he would feel that everything was worth it. Even if there was always a thorn in his heart, he didn't dare to continue loving her because he couldn't let her stay in the dangerous Nanzhao kingdom. Therefore, he had to have a legitimate reason to bring her back. Chapter 1858. After a long while, he slowly released her. His deep eyes were red. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes. Even if he didn't say anything, she could still feel his sorrow. Luo Qingshun bit her lips and looked at him. What's wrong? Since the day she met him, she had never seen Nan Yixing act like this. Everything he did for her seemed to be gentle and soft, and not the irresistible domineering feeling in the depths of her heart at this moment. After a long while, he said, "If you find out that I have a lot of secrets one day, will you be angry with me? Everyone has secrets." Luo Qingshun nodded slightly and looked into his eyes. "If you don't say it, you must have your reasons." She was very clear that Nan Yixing had something he couldn't say. However, She wasn't puzzled by this point. Even though she could feel the other party's almost perfect affection for her, his favorable impression of her was forever stuck at 50% and never increased. He looked into her eyes, his deep, ink-like eyes faintly glowing. He seemed to want to say something, but didn't have the chance, because the voice of Mu Hanch's personal eunuch came from outside the door. "This servant, Xiao Li, requests an audience with your highness." Nan Yixing frowned slightly and said in a clear and cold voice, "Come in. Greetings to your highness and crown princess." Eunuch Li respectfully bowed. He raised his eyes and said, "Tonight, King Mu and Princess Consort are reading a scroll about the Nanzhao Kingdom in the Imperial Study. It's about the story between the Wu people's saintess and the Nanzhao King. However, due to the language barrier, there are some parts that Princess Consort can't understand. This old servant has come to invite your highness the crown princess. I wonder if your highness has the time to come with this old servant." It was such a high-sounding reason that no one could refuse, even if they wanted to. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and looked at Nan Yixing from the corner of her eyes. Just as he was about to refuse, she spoke up first. They were currently in a disadvantageous situation, and Mu Hanch was an overly meticulous person. Even the original owner couldn't guess his thoughts after being by his side for so many years, let alone her. "I happen to be free." Her gaze was indifferent as the corners of her mouth curled up. "Lead the way, eunuch." The next second, when she was about to walk forward, Nan Yixing's right hand tightened and his grip on her hand tightened. His brows were tightly furrowed, and his thin lips were slightly pursed, as if he had 1,000 words to say, but it was difficult for him to say a single one. At this moment, he had a feeling that if the girl in front of him left, she would never return. "I'll be back soon. Can you light a lamp and wait for me to come back?" Luo Qingshun's mouth outlined a faint smile, looked at him seriously, and nodded. After a long time, his ink-like eyes seemed to melt. He looked at her with a gentle smile and said, "All right." He let go of her, and his heart sank as he watched her leave. It turned out that the feeling of pain could be so obvious. It turned out that his heart was so reluctant. When he saw her for the first time, he should have known that there were some things that he could not escape from. In the vast sea of people, he saw her slightly raised head and her bright and clear eyes. Perhaps, at that time, he had already changed all of his thoughts and original intentions. However, he still couldn't open his mouth. He couldn't say everything. Even if she knew in the end, even if she would hate him in the end, all he could do was wait. Chapter 1859. Golden Palace Hall. The entire palace hall was brightly lit and was filled with warmth. Standing at the entrance, one could smell the fragrance of ambergris wafting over. "Crown Princess Consort, this way please." Luo Qingshun indifferently nodded and walked into the palace hall. Mu Hanch was half leaning on the soft couch. Dressed in a golden robe, his half-narrowed eyes were filled with endless indifference and chilliness. There was a woman leaning against his chest. She was wearing a translucent aqua blue dress. She was barefooted, and her long black hair hung down. She had an enchanting appearance. The original host had a deep impression of this person, so much so that Luo Qingshun's heart unconsciously trembled the moment she saw her. "Crown Princess Consort, it's really been a long time since we last met." Mu Hanch picked up the wine cup beside him and drank it in one gulp. "Have you been well these days?" The corners of his mouth curled into an extremely faint smile, but it gave off an icy feeling. Every word was as cold as 1,000-year-old ice. Luo Qingshun thought for a bit. Should she use the original host's tone of voice or her usual tone of voice? After thinking for 3 seconds, Luo Qingshun decided to use her usual tone of voice. After all, she was the main character of this plane and was no longer the original host. She could avenge her and fulfill her wish, but she couldn't replace her in expressing her love. "Amen." She lightly nodded her head. Her eyes were as calm as water, and not the slightest fluctuation of emotions could be seen. Mu Hanch narrowed his eyes. His right hand tightly clenched into a fist, and his slender fingertips made a crisp cracking sound. He was using another method to express his anger. He thought she would understand, but she seemed to not understand. She should understand him. She should know that he was angry every time this happened. But now, why was she so indifferent? He couldn't see the slightest bit of attachment in her clear eyes. Could it be that she really fell in love with that crown prince of the Nanjiao kingdom? Ridiculous, truly ridiculous. Since the day she entered the Mu kingdom at the age of 9, she had never disobeyed her orders. No matter who she killed, she had never once hesitated. But this time, not only did she not kill Nan Yixing, she actually married him and became his crown princess. His heart felt heavy, as if there was a huge rock blocking his chest, suffocating him. I wonder if the crown princess has heard of the story of Nanjiao Kingdom from 400 years ago. My beloved consort and I have a few things we don't understand, so I hope you can help us. As soon as he said that, he gently lifted Eugene Er's chin with his right hand and pressed his thin lips against hers. Only then did he slowly look up at Luo Qingshun. Eugene who was in his arms, turned her head away shyly and snuggled into his arms with blushing cheeks. Luo Qingshun couldn't help but think of the scene when the original owner saw Eugene as a child. It was really a stubborn and humble love. But she wasn't the original owner. In the next second, her lips curled into a faint smile. Her snow-white face didn't show any emotion. She smiled and said, "It would be my pleasure. I wonder if there's anything Prince Mu doesn't understand? I can answer it for you." A gust of cold wind blew in through the crack in the door. The surrounding atmosphere fell into a deathly silence. Mu Hanch coldly looked at her and said without any warmth, "Do you know how the saintess sacrificed the heavenly spirit flower array and calmed the sandstorm?" Chapter 1860. She really didn't know what the end of the saintess from 400 years ago was. Was she dead? If she wasn't, why would she leave Prince Nan alone in this world? It's just a legend. Prince Mu shouldn't take it so seriously. Luo Qingqin's eyebrows twitched slightly, and she actually managed to calm herself down. Little did she know that Mu Hanch suddenly got up in the next second. Eugene who was nestled in his arms, couldn't react in time and fell to the ground. She raised her eyes angrily and glared at Luo Qingshun with her sharp eyes. She pursed her lips and turned to look at Mu Hanch with watery eyes. Jean is in pain. Who exactly was this woman? She actually fell from Mu Hanch's arms. She looked like a vixen. How hateful. Get out. Mu Hanch's voice was so cold that Eugene it couldn't react at all. She looked at him in shock. However, Mu Hanch didn't look at her at all. Instead, he was focused on the crown prince consort from the Nanjiao kingdom. Prince Nan. I don't want to repeat myself a second time. He narrowed his eyes. His pitch-black eyes were bloodshot and filled with killing intent. Eugene was so scared that her face instantly turned pale. She immediately knelt on the ground and saluted while trembling. Jean it will take her leave. As soon as she finished speaking, she left the golden palace with trembling legs. She rarely saw Mu Hanch so angry. She knew that if she didn't leave, given Mu Hanch's temperament, it was very likely that he would kill her directly. Who exactly was that person? Why did she feel that she was a little familiar? After Eugene left, she and Mu Hanch were the only two people left in the Golden Palace. His deep gaze lingered on her, carrying a sense of exploration, confusion, and a hint of reluctance. Have you completed your mission? After an unknown period of time, he slowly opened his mouth and asked a question that he already knew the answer to. Luo Qingshun nodded slightly and replied with an indifferent expression, "I don't understand what Prince Mu is talking about." In an instant, Mu Hanch's eyes narrowed as he pulled out the long sword beside the table and attacked her. Luo Qingshun snorted coldly, narrowed her eyes, and jumped back almost at the same time, dodging his attack. In the next second, she sneered, "What is the meaning of this, King Mu? Silencing them? Don't use such a casual tone to talk to me." His ears were slightly red, and his originally cold expression became angry. She could be angry, she could be furious, she could even scold him, but he just couldn't accept it. She looked indifferent, as if she didn't even know him. "Oh." She raised her clear eyes and smiled faintly. "What kind of tone does Mu Wang think I should use when speaking to you? Is it because I'm not respectful enough?" You know what I'm talking about. Mu Hanch clenched his teeth and said with a mocking smile, "Could it be that you're telling me that you've fallen in love with him?" "Yes." Luo Qingqian nodded. Her gaze was indifferent as she looked at him and said, "I am his crown princess. Naturally, I love him." "I don't believe you." His gaze was faint as the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. "If you know what kind of person he is, perhaps you won't say such laughable words." Nan Yisheng, the person with the highest martial arts in this world of three. As the only disciple of the Sword Immortal, his shrewdness was definitely not something that ordinary people could match. Chapter 1861. You can say all the bad things about him. If I leave him, it'll be my loss. She nodded slightly, her gaze resolute without the slightest hesitation. Although she only had a 50% favorable impression of him, she had learned to accept and give love after such a long time. She understood that Nan Yisheng was good to her. Even if she didn't have a 100% favorable impression of him, she had never been at a loss. Even if she knew that he had secrets that he couldn't tell her. Good. Mu Hanch said good 3 times in an instant. He put down his sword and strode to her side, grabbing her wrist and pressing it against the wall. His gaze was cold and angry as he looked at her. "Do you know why I want you to go to Nanzhao Kingdom to kill him?" Luo Qingqian frowned. She wanted to break free, but found that Mu Hanch's strength was too strong. Struggling was useless. She didn't want to alarm the guards outside, so she could only remain in a deadlock. However, she didn't respond to Mu Hanch. The next second, he said, "If he doesn't die, then you will." It had to be said that Mu Hanch's simple words had indeed caused her heart to tremble. Her eyes trembled, and she actually managed to calm her breathing. She clenched her fists and calmly said, "Do you think I will believe you? Nan Yisheng will inevitably become the king of Nanzhao Kingdom in the future, and you are the only saintess who can save the Nanzhao Kingdom from the curse of the heavenly spirit flower formation." Mu Hanch looked at her somewhat flustered expression and coldly smiled. "You still don't know. You aren't called Xiao Chen. Your original surname is Luo, and your name is Qingqian." She naturally knew that she was called Luo Qingqian, but she didn't know that she was the Wu people's saintess. She recalled what Aunt Luo Xin had said, that the Wu people's saintess had disappeared a long time ago. She didn't expect that it was actually her, so what? She pursed her lips and looked up. "Even if I'm the Wu people's saintess, it doesn't mean that I have to die if he doesn't. Do you think that the lives of the hundreds of thousands of citizens of Nanzhao Kingdom are more important to Nan Yisheng, or you?" Mu Hanch shook his head. His gaze carried a dim light as he said in disdain, "Why do you think a strange woman like you can become the crown prince's consort without any status?" Luo Qingqian furrowed her brows tightly, her whole body trembling. Actually, she knew very well what kind of person Mu Hanch was. He was ruthless, perverse, cold, and emotionless, and he killed without blinking an eye. No matter if it was an enemy or a secret guard that he had personally trained, but he wouldn't lie. Everything he said was mostly true. Even if she resisted in her heart, it was useless. "You seem to know the reason from the look in your eyes." Mu Hanch chuckled softly. He slowly released her wrist and said, "Because your husband, Nan Yisheng, must have already told Prince Nan about your identity. The Wu people's saintess can break the curse of the heavenly spirit flower formation that only appears once every 400 years. At this moment, she was at a loss. No matter how strong her heart was, she couldn't accept this fact. She really panicked. "Miss Luo Qingqian, I can tell you one more thing." Mu Hanch looked at her trembling eyes. A faint trace of confidence flashed through his eyes as he said, "You definitely don't know how powerful he is in martial arts, right? It's rumored that the crown prince of Nanzhao Kingdom is as weak as a scholar. In reality, even if you and I worked together, we wouldn't be his match. Don't say any more." She closed her eyes and said in a trembling voice, "I still believe him. Even if he didn't tell me anything, he didn't lie to me either." Chapter 1862. She didn't know how to face Nan Yisheng when she returned to Muxua Hall. She didn't seem so sad, but her mood was so low. The candlelight in the hall swayed gently. He had left the lamp on, as if waiting for her to come home. Suddenly, Luo Qingshun felt that she seemed to understand Nen Yisheng a little bit. He wasn't as peaceful as she thought. Those deepest secrets were always hidden in his heart, and he didn't tell anyone. "You're back." He stood with his hands clasped behind his back under the candlelight. His clothes were as white as snow. He seemed to be waiting for something, and also seemed to be afraid of something. A faint uneasiness came from the bottom of his heart. He looked at her face and frowned slightly. "Yes," she responded faintly and walked towards the light step by step. Nen Yisheng looked in her eyes and narrowed them slightly. Looking at her deep eyes, he knew that she knew everything she should know. I have a few questions to ask you." Her voice was cold and deliberately estranged. Nen Yisheng could tell at once. "Ask away." He looked at her eyebrows. Under the candlelight, her clear eyes looked so beautiful. His heart was slightly startled. Under his strong heart was an incomparably fragile heart that only he knew. "You know that I'm the saint of the Wu people, right?" Her voice was faint. The moment she raised her eyes, there was a touch of Li Guang in them. "Yes." "You know that I'm Luo Qingshun, right?" "Yes." Prince Nen agreed to let me marry you because of my identity, right? "Yes." "Nen Yisheng, you really know everything." Luo Qingshun closed her eyes, her right hand trembling. The corners of her mouth unconsciously curved into a self-deprecating smile. So this was the reason why his favorability was stuck at 50%. It turned out that she had never entered his heart. "Qingshun," he said softly, as if he wanted to explain something. But all the words were stuck in his throat. He couldn't say a word. In an instant, the candlelight flickered and the entire Mu Shui palace fell into darkness. The window behind her was smashed with a bang, and a man in a black knight's suit attacked Luo Qingshun. She could have dodged, but she didn't. In the blink of an eye, a figure in snow-white clothes appeared in front of her. The figure quickly grabbed the sword in the assassin's hand and slit the assassin's throat. He looked up with a cold gaze and said softly, "Who is it?" "King Mu has arrived." The door opened, and Mu Hanch, who was dressed in a black robe, stood outside the door. He looked at her with a faint dark light in his eyes and said, "It's time to go home. It was time to go home. It was time to go home. It was time to go home." If the original owner could hear these words, she would be so moved. Unfortunately, she would no longer be able to hear it. She had never regretted falling in love with Mu Hanch, even if this man was cold to the point of despair. Nen Yisheng was surprised. Seeing Luo Qingchen's calm as water eyes, he instantly understood the meaning of the assassin that had just appeared. But so what? Even if he knew, even if time came again, he would still choose her. Because he couldn't let her suffer any harm. "I still have one last question." She turned around, her eyes flickering with a faint mist. She pursed her lips and said, "You know that I'm an assassin from the Mu Empire, right?" "Yes." Chapter 1863. "Your Highness Crown Prince, since you know Qingshun's identity, how about we make a deal?" Mu Hanch knitted his brows. Seeing the two of them looking at each other, he really didn't feel good in his heart. Thus, he directly broke the atmosphere. "Speak." Nen Yisheng's words were concise and comprehensive, his tone cold to the bone. "I know your purpose for coming here. Although Liang Ji wasn't the one who poisoned you, I can give you the antidote you want." Mu Hanch paused, then his starry eyes lit up. "She can't go with you anymore." He didn't know why, but he had clearly planned everything to send her back. But when she really had to leave his side, his heart would hurt so much she probably didn't know that he liked her so much. "All right." Nen Yisheng's cold eyes narrowed. "I agree." Straightforward. Mu Hanch's lips curled into a confident smile. He raised his eyes and said, "I've already prepared the antidote in carriage. Since Duke Mu is poisoned, I won't keep your Highness Crown Prince." His slender fingers trembled slightly. The pain in his chest made him feel suffocated for a moment. But he knew that he had to hold on. He had to hold on no matter what. There were some things that only he needed to know. In his eyes, she had always been a child. She didn't need to know about the matters between the Nanzhao kingdom and the Wu people, nor did she need to take responsibility. "All right." He raised his clear eyes, wanted to look at Luo Qingshun again. But in the end, he didn't do so. He was afraid that if he looked at her again, He would rush forward and hug her without a care for anything else. Then, all his previous efforts would be in vain. Luo Qingshan stood in place, waiting for him to say that he didn't want to make this deal. She waited for him to say that he only wanted his crown princess. But he only said one word indifferently. All right. He didn't try to persuade her to stay, didn't have any reluctance. He was so calm, as if they had never gotten married, never consummated their marriage, and never lived those happy days. He left like this, treading on the snow, without even looking back. Do you understand now? Mu Hanch's right hand gently lifted her chin so that they were at eye level. He looked at her and said word by word, "If you weren't the saintess, he definitely wouldn't have chosen you. I'm trying to save you, you know. I don't need you to save me." Luo Qingshan raised her right hand and slapped his right hand away. She narrowed her cold eyes and said with a smile, "I'm not trying to keep him. I just want him to leave safely." Luo Qingshan, you. Mu Hanch's eyes were bloodshot from anger. He clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. "Did you think that I would let him leave safely?" He was so angry that he called her by her full name. She had only had eyes for him since she was young, and his figure was the place where her gaze stopped. But now, she kept saying that the reason she stayed by his side was to protect another man. "Mu Hanch, you're going back on your words." Luo Qingshan was clearly startled. The sadness she felt in her heart instantly vanished like smoke in thin air. At this moment, there was only one thought in her mind. Nan Yisheng, Nan Yisheng, Nan Yisheng. My deal is to give him the antidote. It doesn't mean that I'm letting him go. He coldly snorted. Killing intent flashed through his eyes as he looked at her and asked, "Do you think that his exceptional martial arts can break through my 1,000 guards?" Mu Hanch had absolute confidence at this moment. If he wanted someone dead, that person wouldn't be able to live. Chapter 1864. At this moment, Luo Qingshan turned sideways and jumped out of the window. Teleportation. The system's voice resounded in her mind. This was an order from her. "Everyone at the entrance, stop her from me." Mu Han strode out with a furious look in his eyes. Reporting to King Mu, "I didn't see the crown prince consort come out." "Impossible." Mu Hanch tightly knitted his brows and almost roared. "I saw her jump out of the window with my own eyes." "Go and find her." "Yes, it's little Li present." Mu Hanch tightly clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "Are the guards surrounding Nan Yisheng ready?" "Awaiting King Mu's orders." "I don't believe he can walk out of my palace today." Mu Hanch angrily roared and heavily hammered the wall beside him with his right hand. A faint smell of blood instantly filled the air. He truly hated that man. Luo Qingshan directly arrived at the top of the city wall with teleportation. All she could see was a vast expanse of white snow. There was only one place that was densely packed with flames. At this very moment, Nan Yisheng was surrounded by Mu Hanch's 1,000 guards. They were all dressed in night clothes and wielded long swords. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. As expected, Mu Hanch still wouldn't let him go. He should have guessed it, but he had to come back. He had to personally send his crown prince consort back because his father, the king of the Nanzhao kingdom, had already started the Saintess's heavenly spirit flower array ceremony to remove the 400 years of curse. Since the day she entered the Star Palace, he had done his best to treat her well. He didn't know if she would still remember him in the future, but he wanted to engrave all of her beautiful appearances in his heart. No matter how many years passed in the future, he would be able to remember her forever and reminisce about her. "It seems King Mu doesn't plan on letting me go." Nan Yisheng's cold eyes narrowed. He used his fastest speed to snatch the long sword of the person closest to him. His martial arts were extremely high. Before that person could react, his mouth had already been sealed. The thick smell of blood instantly filled the air. Close to 1,000 guards from the Mu kingdom looked at each other in dismay. They were all subdued by Nan Yisheng's flowing swordsmanship. They had the advantage in numbers, but their opponent was like a god in their eyes. It wouldn't be easy to kill him. "Are you ready?" Nan Yisheng's cold eyes narrowed. There was no gentleness on his charming face. Instead, it was covered with a layer of frost. He narrowed his cold eyes and looked at the guards around him. His lips curled into an extremely cold smile as he said, I want 500 people to be buried with me." As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his sword and charged into the crowd. He killed people on sight and sealed their throats at the sight of blood. The originally white snow was instantly dyed red with blood, and there was no other smell in the air except for the smell of blood. Nan Yixing's white clothes had long been dyed red with blood. Apart from the enemy's blood, there was also his own blood. No matter how high his martial arts were, under such a large number of people, it was inevitable that he would be injured. Every time he rushed into the crowd, he could only minimize the inevitable damage. After a round of fighting, hundreds of people around him had fallen, and he himself was also seriously injured. He was half kneeling in the snow, using his sword to support his body. Blood was dripping from his wound. Chapter 1865. "I'm sorry." He gasped for breath as he softly muttered the words that he hadn't said before, even though he knew that she couldn't hear him. Clap, 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 clap. In the next second, a burst of crisp applause rang out. He looked in the direction of the sound. It was Mu Hanch's applause. He stood nearby with his hands behind his back as he narrowed his eyes and said, "As expected of the Sword Immortal's only disciple, the title of the #1 expert in the world is well-deserved. I think it's worth it if I can drag 500 of you people down with me." Nan Yixing looked at him and said, "And you'll only be labeled as someone who doesn't keep his promise in the eyes of the world." No, no, no. "Your Highness, you're wrong." Mu Hanch coldly looked at him and lightly snorted. "To them, death is an honorable thing. I don't care even if I can kill 50,000 of your people." He paused for a moment before continuing. "As for promises, I don't need them. You naturally don't need them." Nan Yixing's cold eyes narrowed as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his blood-soaked sleeve. He looked at him and said, "If it wasn't for her safety, I wouldn't have brought her to a cold-blooded and heartless person like you." Nan Yixing. Mu Hanch instantly pulled out the sword at his waist and said, "She's mine. You don't have the right to mention her." "Ha ha 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 ha." Nan Yixing let out a long laugh as he looked at Mu Hanch with absolute confidence. "Unfortunately, she's my wife, not yours." He could die, but when it came to the ownership of Luo Qingchen, he wouldn't back down even if he had to die. Nan Yixing. Mu Hanch firmly looked at him and said, "Do you know how many years she's loved me?" "No. How would you know how many days you've known her?" At this moment, all the anger in Mu Hanch's heart exploded. He admitted that he wanted to kill Nan Yixing before the situation had stabilized completely out of selfishness, but he still did it. "Unfortunately, you asked her to kill me, but she didn't. She even married me." When he said this, the corner of Nan Yixing's mouth unconsciously curled into a smile. It was a smile that warmed his heart like a spring breeze. She probably had him in her heart. She had always had him in her heart. In the past, he had too many secrets. He couldn't let go of himself and love her completely, but he really, really liked her. He liked her more than anyone else, including Mu Hanch, who kept saying that she was important. He and his love were different, but now he seemed to be able to love her completely. He had no secrets that he didn't tell her. Actually, he really wanted to tell her that he was very happy to be able to marry her. Ding, affection has increased by 50. Mission completion rate is now 100%. When Luo Qingchen, who was running towards a fire, heard the system prompt, her heart suddenly trembled and her back broke out in a cold sweat. Nan Yixing. She almost trembled as she whispered. She quickly ran towards the light of the fire and kept repeating in her mind, "Wait for me, wait for me, wait for me." When she arrived at the blood-dyed, snowy ground, Mu Hanch was already unable to restrain the fury in his heart as he shouted, "Kill him." In the blink of an eye, she threw the exquisite ring in Nan Yixing's direction, and a golden ring of light surrounded him. Chapter 1866. Due to the existence of the Witch Clan in this plane, she could use abilities that were not supposed to exist in this plane, although there should be serious consequences. But in order to save Nan Yixing, Luo Qingchen felt that no matter what the consequences were, even if the system locked her in a little black room, she had to stand in front of him. The sky was filled with snow, the ground was covered in blood, and there was a large group of guards surrounding them. Mu Hanche's cold as ice eyes were not far away. This scene couldn't help making her think of several worlds ago, when she couldn't save the person she loved. She was called Luo Qingshan back then, and he was called Chu Nanxian. This time, she who was gradually growing could finally stand in front of him. With the phoenix dance sword in her hand, there was no need to fear the world. You think you can save him? Mu Hanche bit his lip as a fierce look flashed in his eyes. He tightly clenched his fist and said, "Do you think my royal palace's death guards are decorations?" His every word and sentence was filled with endless anger and unwillingness. His heart was like a raging fire that kept burning. She was a secret guard that he had trained. He had watched her grow up and watched her follow him. But now, she was standing in front of another man, raising her sword at him. Her eyes were incomparably cold, without a trace of emotion. "Mu Hanche, be reasonable for me." She looked up and her lips curled into a faint, cold smile. "It really isn't hard." "Qingshan." A clear as water voice slowly came from behind her. It had a faint gentleness, a faint warmth, and a soft, trembling voice. He couldn't believe that this young girl would turn around to save him. He thought that their relationship had already reached a dead end after he told her all the secrets and the truth. But she had appeared by his side without any hesitation. Just like 10 years ago, she had never left him because of his selfishness, without knowing why. When she heard Nan Yisheng's trembling voice say her name, she felt her eyes turn red and her heart strangely trembled. She turned around and saw his face that was as white as snow and his white clothes that had already been dyed red. Her nose turned sour and her eyes misted over. She had come too late, letting him fight alone and suffer such heavy injuries. "Sorry, I'm still late." Her right hand trembled as she softly touched his chest that was still dripping blood. Her long lashes fanned out as tears fell down drop by drop. She knew that she couldn't cry now, but she really couldn't hold it in. But after that, Nan Yisheng's right hand suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her into his embrace, using all his strength to tightly hold her. "Even if he's his blood, he's tea." He hugged her like this as he said in her ears, "I like you, Luo Qingshan, I like you very, very like it. It's more than what the secular world calls love, that kind of love." Luo Qingshan stared blankly. She could feel the hot blood staining her clothes, but Nan Yisheng's grip on her tightened. "Let go first." She bit her lip and said, somewhat angrily, "You're injured." "Amen," he replied seriously, his voice full of joy, but he still hugged her and didn't let go. Chapter 1867. Snow swirled in the air, and the bloodstains on the ground seemed to have dried up. Hearing her words, he gently let go of her and softly said, "All right, it's a promise. It's a promise." She slightly leaned over and planted a kiss on his pale cheek. Looking at him, she said, "Wait for me." As her voice fell, she turned around and looked at Mu Hanche's gloomy face. Her gaze instantly turned cold as she looked at him and said, "King Mu, if you don't intend to let us go today, I guarantee that I will bury all of your hidden guards with us. No, perhaps I should say that they will die, but we won't." She had the ability to protect him and bring him safely out of here. If Mu Hanche didn't agree, she could only meet force with force. Not bad, not bad. Mu Hanche's face was dark, and every word he said was extremely cold. He looked at her and said, "As expected of the saintess of the Wu people, you truly possess abilities that ordinary people don't have. It's good that you know." Luo Qingshan lightly raised her right hand, and the phoenix dance sword glowed with a reddish-gold light. Under the dark night, she was like a god, so powerful that no one dared to approach her. Mu Hanche narrowed his eyes, the coldness in his eyes becoming even more intense. Several seconds later, he raised his right hand, and two guards pressed a woman forward. She wore a bamboo-colored brocade robe and had a crystal hairpin in her long black hair. The instant she saw Luo Qingshan, a trace of Li Guang flashed through her eyes. "Song Lu." She was stunned for a moment and muttered her name. In an instant, Mu Hanche's longsword was clamped on Song Li's neck. The instant the sharp longsword touched her neck, blood seeped out. "I wonder if you, Luo Qingshan, still want her life." A trace of killing intent flashed through Mu Hanch's eyes as his sword moved in a bit more. Bright red blood dripped down the long sword drop by drop. Song Li didn't even frown as she looked at her angrily and said, "I told you not to come back. Why didn't you listen?" At this moment of life and death, what she was most worried about was her own safety. Just like back then, even if the three of them were in desperate straits, she and Mo would always protect her. If only one of them could survive, she and Mo would still choose her without hesitation. But why did she have to come back? Why didn't she listen to her? Song Lu, I can't leave you behind. She narrowed her eyes, her brows trembling. I've already lost Mo. I can't lose you too. She thought that this was probably the original owner's state of mind. She couldn't possibly leave Song Lu behind. I'll let you take one of them away. Mu Hanch looked at her and said with a smile, "This can be considered a kind of transaction. My apologies." Luo Qingchun shrugged her shoulders. Her eyes flashed with a touch of sharpness as she said, "I want to take both of them." Luo Qingchun, do you truly believe that you have the ability to do so? Mu Hanch looked at her and said, "Then don't blame me." As soon as he finished speaking, the long sword in his hand slashed towards Song Li's neck. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, her cold eyes narrowed and everything in the surroundings froze. She walked forward step by step. Her right hand pulled Song Li's hand and her left hand pressed on her wound, pulling her towards the protective cover of the exquisite ring. At the same time, she replaced Song Li's position and placed the Phoenix Dance sword on Mu Hanch's neck. She sighed softly, and the frozen snowflakes slowly fell down. Chapter 1868. Everyone was shocked. No one dared to believe what was happening before their eyes. In just a second, the two women before them had switched places, and their Mu Wang was being held hostage. Mu Hanch's eyes darkened. Cold snow fell drop by drop, as if it was falling on the tip of his heart. It was so cold. Would she kill him? He didn't want to lie to himself. In fact, he knew very well that she would. If he didn't release Nin Yisheng and Song Lu, she would really take him down with her. All right. Mu Hanch took a deep breath as his deep eyes darkened. He slowly opened his mouth and said, "Let them go, Mu Wang, let them go." He practically roared, expressing the anger in his heart. "I want to go with you." Nin Yisheng looked at Luo Qingchen. His beautiful eyes flickered with a dim light. He frowned slightly, his eyes filled with worry. "Me too." Song Lu seemed to have yet to recover from her shock, but she was the same as before. She absolutely wouldn't leave her alone. At this moment, Luo Qingchen had an indescribable feeling of wanting to beat the two of them. If she could shout, she would definitely say, "Don't you two know that you're the stumbling blocks on my escape?" Of course, she didn't say that out loud. Instead, she looked at them with a serious expression and said, "You two go first. I'll catch up later, okay? Believe me, they can't do anything to me." Nin Yisheng looked at her stubbornly. Although he wasn't willing to leave her side at all, he knew that he would only know that he would know her well. However, he knew very well that if he stayed now, he would only bring her trouble. He should leave and not drag her down. In the next second, he glanced to the side and said to Song Lu, "Let's go." But Song Lu tightly knitted her brows. She was unwilling to leave Luo Qingchen. She said that no matter where she was, she would always be by her side and protect her. "Let's go." Nin Yisheng slowly got up. He looked at her with his deep ink-like eyes and said, "I believe in her." She narrowed her eyes and smiled gently at him. It was a smile that was like a spring breeze. It was a smile that could completely calm his heart. 2 hours later, in the birch forest outside the palace, Luo Qingchen held the Phoenix Dance sword and held Mu Hanch hostage. There wasn't a single person in the surroundings. A bright moon shone on her snow-white cheeks. She narrowed her eyes and slowly put down her sword. Little did she know that in the next second, Mu Hanch had directly grabbed her Phoenix Dance sword and fresh red blood dripped down drop by drop. The closer he got, the more blood flowed out, but his expression didn't change at all. "Didn't you want to kill me?" A self-deprecating smile appeared on his face as he snorted. "Shouldn't you stab me in the chest?" With that, he raised the Phoenix Dance sword and stabbed towards his chest. At this moment, Luo Qingshun immediately withdrew her sword. She looked at him in panic and asked, "What are you doing?" He smiled and raised his eyebrows confidently. "You can't bear to kill me in the end, but you have to know that if you don't kill me, I will kill him. Mu Hanch, you're a madman." Luo Qingshun closed her eyes. She could actually feel the pain coming from her chest. The pain didn't come from her, but from the original owner. She had a feeling that Mu Hanch truly loved her. It was just that he wanted too much, so he was indifferent to her. He didn't understand love, couldn't love, and didn't know how to love. Chapter 1869. You don't have the qualifications to mention Chi Mo. He sincerely worked himself to the bone for you. Luo Qingshun bit her lips. The scene of Chi Mo's death suddenly flashed before her eyes. It was so miserable, and he was high and mighty, his eyes as cold as frost, without the slightest bit of emotion. But he sincerely likes you. Mu Hanch gently raised his right hand, wanting to touch her cheek, but she directly dodged it. "You're right. I won't kill you because I can't do it." Luo Qingshun looked at him and said word by word seriously, "But I also won't love you because I'm not her." Luo Qingshun didn't know if Mu Hanch understood her words, but they came from her heart. She couldn't replace anyone's love for him, including the original owner. Mu Hanch looked in her eyes for a very long time, so long that the originally fluttering snow had already stopped. He then said, "Don't go back, you'll die." Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes, a trace of doubt flashing through her eyes. She looked at him and said, "The so-called heavenly spirit flower formation. Is there something you haven't told me? Although I don't want to admit it, the reason Nen Yixing brought you back was probably to protect you." Mu Hanch chuckled and said, "But you bravely followed him, not even willing to turn your head back." "You're right." Luo Qingshun put the phoenix dance sword back into its scabbard and looked at him, saying, "I'm leaving. I'll thank you for your affection on her behalf, but she won't be able to receive it." After saying that, she slowly turned around and was about to leave. In the next second, Mu Hanch's extremely cold voice entered her ears, shaking her heart with every word. The heavenly spirit flower formation isn't actually a sacred object. It's a cursed formation that requires the sacrifice of every generation's saintess. Otherwise, the Nanzhao kingdom will sink into a deathly sandstorm. Luo Qingshun listened to his words, but didn't stop her footsteps. He was a bit anxious and continued. "The sacrifice method uses the saintess blood." She still didn't turn around. She couldn't hear his voice clearly, but she understood what he meant. "Luo Qingshun," Mu Hanch roared. "Using all of your blood, was it really worth it?" This time, she stopped, but she didn't look back. Suddenly, she was inexplicably touched by Nan Yixing's love and protection for her. She nodded slightly and looked at the bright moon above her head. She murmured, "It's worth it," because that man clearly knew that if he sent her back, all the citizens of the Nanzhao kingdom would die, but he still resolutely decided to send her back. Everything that remained, he would carry on his back. He would bear it all by himself. Facing Nen Yixing like this, what was not worth it? After a long while, she slowly came to a stop as a dazzling firework flashed across the sky. That was a secret signal between her and Song Lu. The fireworks meant that she would wait for him in a dilapidated temple or something like that. Along the way, a myriad of thoughts ran through his mind. She would occasionally think of Chi Mo and Mu Hanch, but it was only when she thought of Nan Yixing that she would gently raise the corner of her mouth and the gloominess in her heart would be swept away. Perhaps this was what love was supposed to be like in a dilapidated temple in the east of the city. There was a mark left behind by Song Lu at the entrance. She put the phoenix dance sword into her portable space, took out a medical kit from it, and walked inside. She originally thought that she would have to search for a while to find them, but she didn't expect that she would be pulled into a warm embrace the moment she entered. The faint scent unique to him was mixed with the smell of blood. Chapter 1870. Don't hug me so hard if your injuries haven't healed. Luo Qingshun pursed her lips and gently rubbed against him. Her eyes were slightly red as she said, "I will also feel sorry for you, okay?" "Amen," he softly replied, but his arms around her tightened. Song Le half leaned against a tree stump. She narrowed her eyes, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. In the past, she didn't understand why she wasn't moved in the slightest when Chi-Mo treated little Chun so well. Now she knew. It was because she was waiting for Nan Yisheng to appear. Your injuries, it's fine. Who said so? Luo Qingchun gently struggled. She raised her eyes to look at his still pale face and frowned. Bandage it, otherwise it will get infected. Okay. He nodded. His gaze was still very reluctant to part with her. There was a faint light of doting in his eyes. Although he knew she shouldn't have followed him here, he felt that he couldn't push her away when she stood in front of him with a long sword in her hand. He couldn't do it. He really couldn't do it. A bright moon, a bonfire. Luo Qingchun opened the medicine box and carefully applied medicine for Nan Yisheng. She couldn't help but frown when she saw the dozens of wounds all over his body, some of which were still bleeding. You're seriously injured. She carefully applied alcohol to his wounds. She bit her lips and said in a choked voice, Don't get injured in the future. Don't worry. Nan Yisheng slightly raised his hand and touched her head. It hurts a little. What is this? I've never seen it before. Songla looked at the cotton swab in Luo Qingchun's hand and asked, I feel that little Chun changed a lot after his trip to Nanzhao Kingdom. This thing is a bit complicated. It's hard to say at the moment. It's probably a good medicine. Luo Qingchun glanced at her and said, Did he make things difficult for you when I wasn't around? No. She sighed softly. If he hadn't killed Chi-Mo with his own hands, perhaps I would have said a few good words for him. Actually, he could more or less feel Mu Hanch's longing for little Chun because he would stay at her place for a long time every night when it snowed. No one knew where he was going, and no one knew what he was thinking. It doesn't matter. Luo Qingchun shook her head and said, We won't be coming back. Then where are we going? Song Li's eyebrows relaxed slightly. Is the Nanzhao Kingdom good? Don't go back to Nanzhao. Nan Yisheng frowned slightly. His beautiful eyes dimmed as he looked at her. It's too dangerous. Luo Qingchun looked at his deep eyes. She wrapped his wound with gauze and asked, Prince Nan's poison wasn't poisoned by Liangji. She could feel his body freeze for a moment, followed by a deathly silence. He didn't respond, nor did he say anything. He just stared at her blankly, his eyes flickering. It's you, isn't it? She calmly raised her eyes. Her brows slightly furrowed, and there was a faint light in her eyes. Actually, it would be a lie to say that she wasn't touched. What? Songla looked at Nan Yisheng in shock. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she said, You did this just to make little Chin come back? It's a pity that she's smarter and more stubborn than anyone else. No one can stop her from doing what she wants to do. Nan Yisheng's lips curled into a faint smile. He looked at her and said, Since you know, then you shouldn't go back. Chapter 1871. But he furrowed his brows, his expression grave. It's not fair to me either. Luo Qingchun proudly nodded and looked at him. I still want to stay by your side. PFFF, Songla couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. This really doesn't sound like something little Chun would say. These days, when she was alone in the Mu Kingdom, she would always think that if little Chun had been a bit braver towards Mu Hanch, perhaps their ending would have been different. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in this world. People always change, whether it's you or me. Luo Qingchun turned her eyes and looked at Song Lu with a smile. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Luo Qingchun. Luo Qingchun. She was slightly stunned and blinked. Have you found your family? I haven't found my family, but I found quite a few of my clansmen. Luo Qingchun said with a smile. I am the saintess of the Wu people. A trace of surprise flashed through Song Li's eyes, but it was quickly followed by an expression of realization. After all, the series of inconceivable illusions in the royal palace wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Qingchun, she smiled sweetly. Such a beautiful name, but I still don't understand. Hasn't the Nanzhao Kingdom always been on good terms with the Wu people? Since Qingchun is the saintess of the Wu people, why can't she return? Because of the heavenly spirit flower formation. Luo Qingchun blinked and looked at Nan Yisheng. Can you tell me about the matter from 400 years ago now? Nan Yixing thought for a moment, and his beautiful eyes wrinkled. The heavenly spirit flower formation was originally meant to protect the Wu people for 100 generations. But 400 years ago, the saintess wasn't the only one who fell in love with the Nanzhao king. The flower goddess of the heavenly spirit flower formation also fell in love with the Nanzhao king. What? Luo Qingshan was shocked and suddenly realized, no wonder the saintess' blood sacrifice was needed to calm the resentment of the heavenly spirit flower formation. That flower goddess was called She. She fell in love with the Nanzhao king at first sight. But because she couldn't get love, she became jealous. As Nan Yixing spoke, he didn't forget to gently stroke her head and said, later, that flower goddess called She trapped her primordial spirit in the heavenly spirit flower array and became a demon. Why do you want to become a demon? Song Le blinked and asked. Because gods can't do evil. Only demons can trap Kai Ling in a formation and create a world of their own. Nan Yixing sighed softly. She's obsession supports her. Even if she is about to receive divine punishment, she will still persevere. Every 400 years, she will set a curse so that every saintess will lose their lives to her. She didn't know why, but as she listened to Nan Yixing talk about Xi's story, Luo Qingshan felt an inexplicable sense of desolation. She felt that the beginning of the story might not be what they had imagined. A god could become a demon for the sake of a loved one, trapped in the world he created for all eternity, enduring endless loneliness. Just to take revenge on the saintess of the Wu people, the story of 400 years ago must not be so simple. I think this story should have an end. Luo Qingshan narrowed her eyes and took a deep breath. A faint guang flashed in her eyes. Nan Yixing looked at her and frowned. Do you really want to go back? We won't go back to the Nanzhao kingdom. Luo Qingshan looked at him and narrowed her clear eyes. We will go to the heavenly snow peak. The Wu people. Chapter 1872. It took them a total of 7 days to travel from the Mu kingdom to the Wu people. Nan Yixing had his subordinates bring the antidote back to the palace, and then he went up the snow sky peak with Luo Qingshan. After 10 years, he felt a special feeling when he came back to this place that he couldn't tell anyone else. After so many years, the snow sky peak really hasn't changed at all. Looking at the white snow mountain, Nan Yixing narrowed his eyes and sighed. Do you still remember when we met here? I don't remember. Luo Qingshan proudly looked away, and her eyes trembled as she said, So you married me to be the crown princess because of what happened when you were young. The most annoying thing was this kind of setting. The previous host had met the male lead once when she was young. This treasure is the host, not the previous host. All right? Of course not. Nan Yixing walked forward and gently rubbed her head. I like you because so many people saw you at the ceremony that day. Are you for real? We're really quite far away. Really? Luo Qingshan looked at his sincere eyes and pursed her lips. All right. I forgive you. Didn't you come to find the Wu people's chief? Song looked across his arms and looked up. It's not good to say such words of love here. Song Lu. Luo Qingshan cleared her throat. When this matter is over, the first thing I'll do is marry you off. You. Song Li's eyes trembled and he looked away. What nonsense are you saying? Xiao. While they were happily chatting, 2 white figures appeared above their heads. They landed in front of them with long swords in their hands. Who are you? Daring to trespass on the snow sky peak. Luo Qingshan narrowed her eyes as she looked at the 2 big sisters in white, fluttering clothes. Her lips curled as she said, This is the crown prince from the Nanzhao kingdom. We have matters to discuss with the chief, or Luo Xian Gugu. The 2 young ladies arrogantly looked Nan Yixing up and down. The moment they saw his eyes, their cheeks flushed slightly. She was indeed a once-in-a-century beauty. Beautiful things were always appreciated and liked by many. The crown prince of the Nanzhao kingdom can enter. One of them glanced at Luo Qingshan and pointed his sword at her. But the others can't come in. Otherwise, don't blame the sword for being blind. Swords have no eyes? Luo Qingshan gave a cold snort. She took out the Phoenix Dance sword from her storage space and came forward with a set of moves. With a clang sound, The sword in the hands of the two young ladies fell to the ground. Luo Qingshun raised her phoenix dance sword and raised her eyebrows. Blades and swords really have no eyes, but this is my sword, not yours. Wow, you're so handsome. Song Lu, who was standing at the side, looked at her with admiration. He blinked his eyes and said, I feel like little Chun has really changed. It's as if she's shining wherever she goes. Big sister Song Lu, that's called shining, okay? How dare you? You dare to be disrespectful to the people of the Wu people. The white-clothed young lady bit her lips and said, If Gugu and the elders know, they won't let you go. If the Wu people's big sisters are as weak as you, then Shi Hua will be pissed to death. Luo Qingchen shrugged and snorted lightly. I'll say it again. We're going to the Snow Sky Peak. But it's probably useless to tell you because you can't stop me. Chapter 1873. Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes and waved the exquisite ring on her right hand. A golden light appeared and directly attacked the white light. In that instant, the golden light suppressed the white light. Faint golden fragments floated in the air. What a strong power. Who are you? What happened at Heavenly Snow Peak? Standing not far away, Luo Xen, wearing a white brocade, slowly walked up. The moment her eyes fell on Luo Qingshun, she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Auntie, two young ladies wearing white rushed up and said with a wronged face, It's this person who dares to trespass on Heavenly Snow Peak. Auntie, you can't let her go. That's right, that's right. Just now, he even spoke rudely to us and slandered the sorcerer tribe. Another young lady saw this and immediately added. At this moment, Song Lu, standing on the side, couldn't listen anymore. Probably because she had been a shadow guard for so many years. Every time she completed a mission, she had no one to rely on. Whenever she encountered something, she would bravely stand up and kill the enemy, even if she was bleeding. She would never beg for mercy or ask for help. Therefore, for Song Lu, she couldn't stand this kind of girl who obviously didn't have any ability but had to rely on her mouth to make things up. Don't you feel ashamed saying such things? Song Lu raised her eyebrows and rolled her eyes. If you're not as good as others, then learn. Don't complain when you meet a strong opponent. Funny. Who are you? The young lady in white seemed to be a bit angry. She used a weak illusion to control the snow on the ground to attack Song Lu. Little did she know, she dodged with a little qigong. In the next second, she immediately squatted down and grabbed a big snowball and threw it at the young lady in white's face. With a pa sound, the snowball hit the person's face. Her eyes widened and her face flushed red with anger. Ha 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 ha. Song Lu Jian held his stomach as he broke out in laughter. Luo Qingchun, standing on the side, curled her lips and said, No wonder the heavenly spirit flower array didn't touch the curse after 400 years. It seems like the witch race's abilities are declining. Aunt Chi, don't be rude. Luo Xn frowned and scolded angrily. Your sorcery is only embarrassing. Auntie, Ming'er knows she was wrong. After the white-clothed big sister was reprimanded, she immediately retreated to the side. Although he was unwilling, he didn't even dare to raise his head. Who was Luo Xn? If she was really angry, she might not even be able to stay in the Wu people. It seems that you and the Crown Prince are here for the Heavenly Spirit Flower Array. Luo Xn nodded to Nan Yixing and continued. The Crown Prince is, I'm afraid Aunt Luo Xn still doesn't know that she is my wife. Nan Yixing raised his eyebrows and said, This time, Tian Shui Feng has a few things to ask Aunt Luo Xn. That's fine. Luo Xn nodded and looked at Luo Qingchen. However, this lady, my name is Luo Qingchen. She didn't want to beat around the bush and went straight to the point. I'm the saint of the Wu people. At this moment, the two young ladies in white who had lowered their heads suddenly turned pale. They suddenly raised their eyes and met Luo Qingchen's domineering eyes. The next second, they immediately staggered back. Their legs were weak and they couldn't stand still. Chapter 1874. Auntie. The two big sisters looked at Luo Qingchen in panic. Luo Xn ordered, Why aren't you greeting the Wu people's saintess? The two white-clothed big sisters sucked in a cold breath and immediately knelt down, "Greetings, Saintess." Luo Qingchun slightly nodded and didn't want to argue with them. She looked at Luo Xian and said, "Take me to see the elder. There are some things that need to be resolved." Luo Xian looked at her for a long time and finally sighed. "Okay." Sky Snow Peak, Wu People's holy palace. The holy palace stood in the clouds and looked very ethereal from afar. Luo Xian slightly knit her brows and said, "Maybe you're right. Whether it's the Nanzhao Kingdom or the Wu people, we shouldn't run away anymore." Luo Qingchun didn't reply and followed Luo Xian into the palace. This was the first time she saw the oldest elder of the Wu people. Her appearance was very different from what she had imagined. She had a head of long black hair, and although her face wasn't young, there weren't any wrinkles. It was hard to imagine that someone who had lived for 400 years would look like this. "Qingchun, they finally found you." Sitting high up, Luo Ying, dressed in a snow-white robe, stared at her for a long time before saying, "You really look like her." "Who are you talking about?" Luo Qingchun's brows slightly moved, and there was a touch of clarity in her eyes. Luo Yao from 400 years ago, the woman who saved the people of the Nanzhao Kingdom from the sandstorm. Elder Luo Ying sighed and said, "Sit down. I know why you're here. Maybe this shouldn't be a secret." After 3 cups of tea's time, Luo Qingchun finally finished listening to the story from 400 years ago. Actually, the one who was hurt the most was the flower goddess of the heavenly spirit flower array. She, as the protector of the Wu people and the heavenly spirit flower array, she did what a protector should do. She listened to their prayers and protected the Wu people from the pain of life and death. However, she did not have a happy ending. Back then, the first one to fall in love with Prince Nan was not Luo Yao, but she. That year, she came out of the heavenly spirit flower array and transformed into a human to save Prince Nan, who was being assassinated by his brothers. When she first saw him, she did not fall in love with him. She just thought that he was very handsome and very brave. Prince Nan was heavily injured and his consciousness was blurry. He said a lot of nonsense intermittently and was heard by she. It was probably at that time that she felt that this man was very special and couldn't help but fall in love with him. However, as a guardian, she could not leave the heavenly spirit flower array for too long. Thus, after taking care of Prince Nan, she went back first. Little did they know that Prince Nan was saved by Luo Yao in the cave. The moment Prince Nan opened his eyes, he fell in love with Luo Yao at first sight. However, she didn't know about this. Prince Nan once thought that the person who saved his life was Luo Yao, but Luo Yao didn't understand the meaning of the word save. At that time, the Wu people's elders were against Prince Nan and Luo Yao being together because they saw she saving Prince Nan from the mystic mirror. However, they never thought that Luo Yao and Prince Nan's love was so deep that they would give up everything to be together. Chapter 1875. So she hates the witch clan because she thinks that the person Prince Nan loves is her, but Saintess Luo Yao stole the person she loves away. Yes, the elder nodded and said, "Actually, Prince Nan has always loved Luo Yao. Even after he found out that she was his savior, he still felt nothing but gratitude towards she." Luo Qingchun narrowed her eyes as her right hand tapped the table out of habit. She knit her brows as she said, "So when Luo Yao knew that she was Prince Nan's savior, did she tell Prince Nan?" Luo Yao didn't say. The elder allowed a long sigh. Maybe if Luo Yao told him, she wouldn't hate her so much and hate the Wu people so much. To be honest, if I was she, I would be unhappy too. Luo Qingchun paused before saying, "Although I won't implicate innocent people, Luo Yao was wrong in this matter." Luo Yao was too afraid of losing him. When she found out she was wrong, she had already set up a curse. Luo Ying shook her head. At that time, it was too late. In order to save the lives of the Nanzhao Kingdom's people, she could only sacrifice all of her essence blood in exchange for the Nanzhao Kingdom's safety. Song Lu, who had been listening to the story, slowly opened his mouth. Actually, this ain't Luo Yao has already used her life to make up for the harm she caused to she. This grudge has lasted for 400 years. How much hatred does she have? How can you or I understand her hatred? Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes. Elder, I know the story, so I'll be direct. Just say it. 400 years ago, whether it was the Wu people, the Nanzhao kingdom, or she paused. The grudges between them have nothing to do with us. As her voice fell, she didn't forget to point at Nan Yixing, sitting next to her. But, of course, to be clear, I don't want to sacrifice my blood to the heavenly spirit flower array in exchange for 400 years of peace for the Nanzhao kingdom. Luo Qingshun nodded slightly. Her eyes flashed. But if I can save the people of the Nanzhao kingdom, I am willing to do my best to save them. What I want to ask is, other than sacrificing my life, is there any other way to break Xi's curse? This was a reason why Luo Qingshun came to the Sky Snow Peak. She wasn't some hero who saved the people from the fire and water. She could die for the people she loved, but she couldn't do it to save the people. Elder Luo Ying was silent for a long time before she sighed. Saintess and Prince Nin entered the heavenly spirit flower array at the same time. If you can break Xi's enchantment, you might be able to break her curse. Enter the heavenly spirit flower array? Luo Qingshun frowned and asked, What do you mean? After she fell from being a god and became a demon, she placed her spirit in the heavenly spirit flower array. It's a world she created herself, and all the stories are developed according to the script she set up. Luo Ying said helplessly, This is only a legend. As for what kind of world it is, I can't say. Luo Qingshun was silent for a long time before she looked up and said, Okay, I understand. Let's do it like that. As her voice fell, she turned to Nan Yixing and said with a smile, His Highness the Crown Prince may have to trouble you with something. Nan Yixing was slightly surprised, but then he revealed a gentle smile and said, Okay. Since the Saintess and Prince, Nan had to enter the heavenly spirit flower array at the same time. Nan Yixing's identity couldn't just be the Crown Prince. Chapter 1876. 3 days later, Nan Wang officially abdicated. Nan Yixing became king and changed the title to Qing. Everyone knew that the meaning of this title was for his only wife, Luo Qingshun. Because there was not much time left before the curse ended, the Wu people all came down from the Sky Snow Peak and rushed to the palace. In the next 2 hours, the 4 elders of the Wu people will do their best to open the heavenly spirit flower array. The moment the array is opened, you and Nan Wang will immediately enter. Luo Ying looked at her and said, This is an array that traps the gods. Whether you can come out or not will depend on your luck. Nan Yixing heard this and frowned. He was still worried about her. Even if he would always be by her side, he still didn't want her to take any risks. Do we really have to go? My lord husband, you've already asked this question many times. Luo Qingshun gave a shrug and said with a faint smile, Did you forget what you promised your royal father? Luo Qingshun didn't even need to think to know that Nan Yixing must have used saving the Nanzhao kingdom as a condition for Nan Wang to abdicate and become the king of the Nanzhao kingdom. No matter what, it's good to have you by my side. He narrowed his eyes and gently raised his right hand, tucking her fine hair behind her ear. With a gentle smile, he said, I will protect you with all my strength. I will also protect myself, so you don't have to worry. You said you can't go back on your words, and I won't go back on my words. This was their last conversation in front of the heavenly spirit flower array. Luo Qingshun knew it was very dangerous ahead, but she didn't expect it to be an unforeseen farewell. The 4 elders of the sorcerer tribe chanted incantations, and the 4 crystal-like stone pillars glowed with a faint blue light. Heaven and earth in the netherworld, from the yellow springs to the underworld, all living beings in the netherworld, have mercy on the afterlife. The Wu people's incantation sounded in her ears. Nan Yixing tightly held her hand with endless determination and faith, until Luo Xian's hoarse voice sounded in her ears. Now, enter. Endless falling, 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 falling. Some people said that infinity was bound to be reversed. Under the endless abyss, there must be a bright heaven. For the first time, she felt this saying was true. Xi's world wasn't just a patch of darkness. Instead, it was bright and dazzling. However, She kept feeling that her mind was starting to go blank as a steady stream of memories poured into her mind. Her name was Nan Qingshan. She was the princess of the Nanzhao kingdom. She had fallen in love with her own brother, Nan Yixing. Because of this, she killed every woman who tried to get close to her brother. It didn't matter if this person was deeply in love with her brother or if her brother was deeply in love with her. As long as she got close to her brother, there was only one word for it: death. Host, do you want to isolate your memories? Quarantine. Ding, 3,000 exchange points has been taken. The memory has been successfully isolated, but the identity will not change. The next second, she pulled herself back from her thoughts. She was indeed very powerful to actually be able to give her a new identity, causing her to sink into this identity and be unable to extricate herself. If it weren't for the system, she would have completely forgotten her purpose for coming here and be trapped here forever. Luo Qingshan shook her head and looked around. This was the palace of the Nanzhao kingdom. She was wearing a water blue dress with a 1,000-colored plum blossom. Her hair was combed into a bun, and there was a red coral flower hairpin on the top of her head. It was graceful and luxurious. She was a princess, the princess of the Nanzhao kingdom. Chapter 1877. Princess, you're up early today. This servant will help you dress up. A maid dressed in aqua blue brocade robes walked over. Although the system had isolated her memories, it didn't mean that she didn't have the memories of this princess. This was her personal maid. Her name was Qianlan. Amen. She nodded slightly, her thoughts still in a mess. Qianlan helped her dress up as she said, "This servant has already done what the princess ordered this servant to do. I guarantee that the princess consort will be poisoned to death at the wedding banquet today." Princess consort? Luo Qingshan's eyes trembled slightly as she tried hard to search for any memories related to the princess. Today was the day her brother, Nan Yixing, was marrying the princess consort. It seemed that the world she had created was for them to experience endless pain of love and hate. They would sink into it endlessly and feel pain forever. No need. Luo Qingshan looked up and said, "Carry a gift on your back. This princess will personally congratulate my brother." "But princess, there's no need for such things in the future." She slowly got up as a cold glint flashed through her eyes. She muttered, "Actually, I also want to know what Nan Yixing would do if he really had such a taboo love and couldn't isolate his memories like her. He would probably find it very, very difficult." Red silk hung high as singing and dancing celebrated. The entire palace was in a festive mood. When they arrived at the main hall, Luo Qingshan finally saw the bride's appearance. It had to be said that she was truly hateful, because this so-called princess consort was none other than Mu Hanch's princess consort, Eugene Er. At first, Luo Qingshan didn't understand how Eugene Er could become a supporting female character in this plane. After all, she hadn't appeared many times. But now, she seemed to understand the reason behind it. Qing Er greets royal brother and princess consort. Luo Qingshan's lips curved into a faint smile as she slowly curtsied. But when she saw Nan Yixing in his bright red wedding robes, looking at Eugene Er with eyes full of love and adoration, her heart couldn't help but thump. "And man, it hurts." "Yes." Nan Yixing looked at her and frowned. "Why are you here?" Every time he married a concubine, the concubines would mysteriously die within a few days. All the evidence pointed to his sister, but he didn't believe it. She was his little sister, an innocent little sister who had been by his side since she was young. How could she possibly kill someone? However, he couldn't help but suspect that this matter really had something to do with his sister. His biological sister. Isn't it normal for me, his younger sister, to come and congratulate him on his wedding? Luo Qingshan waved her hand. Her personal palace maid brought in 2 boxes of silk and satin, saying, "This is a congratulatory gift from me as a younger sister to Wang Fei. I hope Wang Fei will not dislike it. I don't want it. Take it away." Eugene Er's expression changed slightly. She snuggled deeper into Nan Yixing's arms and said, "King, I don't want." Nan Yixing was a little stunned. A doubtful light flashed in his eyes, but it was immediately replaced by a dim light. He nodded and said, Thank you, little sister. Qing won't stand in the way of royal brother's company. Her eyes trembled slightly. She curtsied and said, Qing will take her leave. As the cold wind blew, Luo Qingshun could feel the pain in her heart, but she didn't know what else she could do given her identity. She could only try her best to change Xi's script and make the story go in a completely different direction for what she had written. Only in this way would she truly dedicate herself to him. Chapter 1878. When she returned to her bedroom, the candlelight in the room flickered and red silk flashed before her eyes. What should she do? What should she do? What should she do? The moment she arrived in this world, she knew that she couldn't use any of her abilities. This was a barrier. If she wanted to break it, she had to find its weakness and make she sacrifice herself. But she hadn't found the weakness yet, and the man she loved was about to consummate his marriage with another woman. Even in the world she had created, she couldn't do it. No, I can't do it. Luo Qingshun bit her lip and said to Qianlong, Let's go to the Starry Hall. Is your highness planning to use poison? Qianlong smiled. This servant has already prepared it. Luo Qingshun looked up and narrowed her eyes. Your princess doesn't use such methods anymore. Isn't it better to face him directly? The Starry Hall. The faint scent of sandalwood filled the air. The windows were plastered with the word Xi in bright red, and the room was filled with red silk. It was a mesmerizing sight. Your Highness, you can't go in now. The eunuch at the door blocked her way. He waved his right hand, and no one dared to stop her. Little did she know that as soon as she opened the door, she would run into Nan Yisheng, who reeked of alcohol. Both of them were stunned, and a trace of surprise flashed across their faces. Brother Wang. Luo Qingshun was the first to speak, a hint of worry in her eyes. Nan Yisheng narrowed his eyes and stroked her hair with his right hand. Why do you feel so strange all of a sudden? He didn't understand why his sister's figure flashed across his mind as he stood in the room and looked at the bride sitting on the bed. It took him a long time to come back to his senses and leave the room in a panic. He didn't expect to run into her the moment he opened the door. An inexplicable palpitation spread from the bottom of his heart. It was a feeling he had never felt before. What are you doing here? He frowned, not daring to look her in the eye. To look for you. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and looked through the crack in the door. Eugene was sitting on the bed with her hands clenched. The red cover had yet to be lifted. Although they were far apart, Luo Qingshun could feel the other party's nervousness and uneasiness. My dear sister, what exactly are you? Before Nan Yisheng could finish, Eugene groaned in pain and fell straight to the ground. Luo Qingshun and Nan Yisheng were stunned at the same time. All the palace maids and eunuchs entered the room. Nan Yisheng looked at her in astonishment. She covered her chest with her hand and spat out blood. She slowly stretched out her snow-white hand and pointed at Luo Qingshun. You harmed me. Before she could finish speaking, she fainted in Nan Yisheng's arms. Luo Qingshun frowned. Looking at her slightly raised mouth before she fainted, she knew what was going on. It seemed that Eugene was much stronger than he had imagined. Quick, summon the imperial physician. Nan Yisheng's voice slowly rang in her ears, making her feel strangely suffocated. So this was what it felt like to see the person you loved being nervous about someone else. Xi's script was probably to make her feel this pain. After all, the person who had felt this pain was none other than Xi. Luo Qingshun returned to her bedroom and was put under house arrest. She asked Qianlong again, but the latter said that she definitely didn't poison her. The only possibility was that Eugene had poisoned herself. Chapter 1879. Although Qianlong gave off the impression that she was a villain, her words were not without reason. She didn't harm Eugene, but Eugene, poisoned herself and framed her. What kind of ending did she want to see for them to appear? In this script that she had set, Luo Qingshun couldn't help feeling helpless. Qianlong hurried forward and knelt before him. Lord Nan, our princess, bang. He raised his right leg and kicked Qianlong into the corner. Her face turned pale. Get lost, or I'll make sure your head is off. His voice was cold, and his eyes were cold. He had a noble air about him, as if he was looking down on the thousands of people under his feet. Although he was a king, not every king could emit such a domineering aura. Nan Yisheng, what do you mean by this? Luo Qingshun looked up at Qianlan and motioned for her to leave. She looked straight into his eyes, not backing down at all. She didn't know what she wanted to do, nor did she know what the ending of this script would be, but she knew that she couldn't run away. If she ran away, she and Nan Yisheng would be trapped here forever. What did you call me? He raised his eyebrows, and a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. She was no longer calling him Big Brother or Brother Wang. Instead, she was calling him by his full name. For some reason, he felt his blood boil at that moment. It was as if the person standing in front of him wasn't his sister, but someone else. Nan Yisheng, Luo Qingshun said calmly. I'm Luo Qingshun, and I like you. Since he was going to come to this step in the end, he might as well be frank about it now. Perhaps Nan Yisheng could separate his memories and not be controlled by Xi's plot. What nonsense are you talking about? There was some anger in his eyes, and his deep eyes were bloodshot as he looked at her and said, You are my little sister. I'm not your sister. She narrowed her eyes. Nan Yisheng, you said that I'm your only wife. He narrowed his eyes, and there was a flash of joy in his eyes, but there was more anger in his eyes. After all, they were siblings from the same father and mother. How could she say something like that? Do you want to be my wife so badly? The next second, he looked up and put his right hand around her neck, pulling her to his side. I'll ask you one question. Luo Qingshun could feel a slight pain in her neck. He was using a lot of force. She raised her eyebrows slightly. Go ahead. Were you the one who harmed all my concubines? His gaze carried a hint of viciousness, causing one's heart to tremble. Even so, she still looked up calmly and said, Everyone except Eugene. Very good, very honest. There was a dangerous look in Nan Yisheng's deep eyes. His beautiful face stopped a few millimeters away from her. He smiled wickedly and said, Because I was the one who poisoned Eugene. At that moment, Luo Qingshun felt her heart tremble. Chapter 1880. Are you surprised? His beautiful eyes narrowed and the corners of his mouth curled into a faint smile as he said, However, my poison may not have taken effect yet, but another poison has taken effect first. Seeing Nan Yisheng's slightly curved lips, Luo Qingshun couldn't help but feel a little flustered. He raised his eyebrows, and his thin lips came close to hers. Since my little sister likes me so much, why don't we spend our wedding night together tonight? As soon as he finished speaking, Nan Yisheng lazily picked her up and walked towards the inner palace. Luo Qingshun's breath caught. She wanted to say something, but felt her mind go blank. Host, if you and Nan Yisheng have a forbidden relationship in this scenario, you will never be able to leave this place. The system's voice was very soft, but she could still hear it. Suddenly, she understood why she had created such a script for them. She wanted them to love each other, but not be able to wait. Luo Qingshun struggled, and her eyes trembled. It's too late, my good little sister. Nan Yisheng looked deeply into her eyes and said, Since you've done so many things just to be with me, I'll fulfill your wish. As soon as his voice fell, she felt herself being thrown onto the soft bed. Nan Yisheng leaned over and used an extremely domineering force to firmly trap her. Just as she was about to say something, she was forcefully gagged. Without any explanation, kisses that blotted out the sky and covered the earth fell upon her. Nan Yisheng. She slightly raised her eyes and looked at Nan Yisheng, whose eyes were gradually blurred and whose cheeks were red. Her heart inexplicably throbbed. It wasn't that she hadn't done anything with him before, but under these circumstances, it was too taboo. I still want to hear you call me Big Brother. In his panic, he kissed her with a soft whisper, touching her ear over and over again. The feeling of being electrocuted instantly spread throughout her body, and the crimson on her cheeks gradually spread to the roots of her ears. Nan Yisheng, calm down. Luo Qingshun took advantage of the gap between kisses to flip her messy dress. Let's talk about it. Hearing this, Nan Yisheng's eyes fell on the ribbon in Luo Qingshun's hand. He slightly narrowed his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curved into an extremely faint smile. So my little sister likes to do this kind of exciting thing? Luo Qingshun took a deep breath and resisted the urge to punch him in the face. If Nan Yixing knows that he said this to me today, he will definitely regret it. His gaze froze for a moment, and a hint of hesitation flashed through his pitch-black eyes. But in the next second, all his rationality was instantly overturned. He leaned forward, grabbing the ribbon in her hand, pushing her directly. If you like it, I'll fulfill you. In an instant, his slender fingers wrapped the satin ribbon around her wrist, and her delicate wrist was instantly imprisoned. And before she could regain her senses, his slightly cold fingertips had touched her absolute territory. He kissed her again, imprisoning all her actions, so that only his figure existed in her mind. Luo Qingshun could only feel her heart pounding uncontrollably. The host uses blood. A few seconds later, when Nan Yixing was about to break through her last line of defense, she clenched her teeth and suddenly used both hands to tear the ribbon that bound her hands. She turned around and rushed to the counter to pick up the knife on the table. Chapter 1881. In that instant, the originally dark sky gradually lit up. Nan Yixing was stunned. Looking at Luo Qingshun, who was in tatters, he actually frowned. Bright red blood dripped down drop by drop. She blinked, then blinked again, looking at him. Are you Nan Yixing? Because the system's words were too vague, she wasn't sure if the blood it was talking about was her own or Nan Yixing's. Of course, in an uncertain situation, she would test her own blood first. In the next second, Nan Yixing slowly stood up, frowning. He walked towards her step by step. Oh no, Luo Qingshun muttered. She raised her dagger, planning to slash at his arm. She didn't know that he had grabbed her dagger. His right hand picked up the wedding jacket scattered by the bed and directly put it on her. I'm sorry. With a clang, he pulled her into his arms, tightly hugging her. I'm sorry. For Nan Yixing, this was a complete separation of memories. Other than sorry, he didn't know what else to say to her. It seemed that only sorry could express all the feelings in his heart. Good, you guys actually found out the story I wrote. An ethereal voice came from above. Luo Qingshun was startled. She pursed her lips. In a flash, Nan Yixing quickly let go of her, protecting her behind him. He looked around vigilantly. We came to find you. Why didn't you show yourself and set up this script? Because I don't believe that in this world, when you can't love someone, you can break through the barrier. In the next second, the surrounding scene changed. The room that was originally hung with red silk turned into a vast expanse of white snow. Nan Yixing frowned. His lips curled into a faint smile. Can't the world created by She-God be warmer? I'm worried that my princess will catch a cold. She transformed into a human form in the snow. She wore a moon-white brocade robe and looked at them with clear eyes. She didn't look like a demon at all. Instead, she looked like a beautiful and refined goddess. It was as if everything in this world paled in comparison to her. You two are so lovey-dovey. She walked forward. Her delicate face had a hint of immaturity. She looked at them and said, I like all of you very much. There was a touch of sadness in her eyes, and a heavy story was buried under her clear eyes. Regarding the matter from 400 years ago, I want to hear your version. Luo Qingshun's eyes fell on she as she spoke. I love him very, very much. She suddenly smiled. Her smile was so bright. In an instant, the snowy ground that was originally covered in white light instantly turned into a raging fire. She laughed crazily, her laughter so desolate. But she doesn't love me, and used my ability to save Luo Yao. She roared, I don't want to save her, but I can't bear to reject him. He saved Luo Yao. Back then, Luo Yao was severely injured during a battle. I used my primordial spirit to save her, but that man, he still betrayed me. Her voice was so desolate, as if it was the first time she had a confession in 400 years. She was uneasy, but it has already been 400 years. What do you want to do now? The surrounding heat caused her breathing to quicken. She could only go straight to the point. Chapter 1882. Luo Qingshun knit her brows, and a faint liguang flashed in her eyes. The next second, the scene around them changed again, and in front of them appeared two doors, one purple and one blue. The blue door is the life door. It leads to the outside world. The purple door is the death door. It's the world here. She looked at them and said, "If you both choose the life door, you have to stay with me." She's voice was very clear. It wasn't a sharp and vicious voice. In Luo Qingqian's eyes, she might be too lonely. Nan Yisheng. She turned her eyes and looked at him faintly. She wanted to say something, but was interrupted by him. "I don't agree." He didn't even think about it and rejected what she wanted to say. How could he leave her alone in this place? He couldn't do it. It was impossible for him to do it. The next second, Luo Qingqian looked up at him and said, "So our family's Nan Wang wants to stay with she." Qingqian. It was clearly a joke, but he seemed a bit anxious and hurriedly explained, "We can stay here together." His tone was very firm. Even if he was living in a virtual world created by a barrier, he didn't hesitate. "Kuka." She cleared her throat, and her clear and worry-free voice sounded again. "I am a god who has never felt love. I fell and became a demon. I can't stand other people's love being complete. If you both stay, you have to accept the story I wrote for you." Nan Yisheng's cold eyes narrowed. He was clearly a bit angry. Luo Qingqian saw this and gently raised her right hand, smoothing his brows, and said, "Don't be angry. Don't be angry. It's not good to frown like a little old man." But Nan Yisheng, she looked at his brows and seriously said, "Actually, we've already achieved our goal for coming here. At least between me and the Nanzhao Kingdom, you don't have to choose. I don't have to choose from the beginning to the end." His beautiful eyes flashed with a faint light, with a touch of mist. For the Nanzhao Kingdom and her, they didn't have the same status in his heart. He could be despised by the people, lose his trust in the country, lose his trust in the people, but he could not lose her. This was never a multiple-choice question. Even when he insisted on marrying her as his wife, it had nothing to do with her being the saint of the Wu people. He didn't even want her to be the saint of the Wu people. But it was precisely because of this status that Prince Nan agreed to let him take her as his concubine. In this world, many things were interconnected. There was a cause and an effect. He had married her because of his own selfishness, so he would have to bear the consequences. "But I want to choose." She raised her clear eyes, and a faint smile appeared on her lips as she looked at him and said, "I don't want to leave you here alone to accompany she. Aren't you afraid that I'll be jealous?" Although this was a joke, this thought came from her heart. After all, she wasn't magnanimous enough to let Nan Yisheng accompany she for countless years. Furthermore, her mission had already been completed. Even if she was trapped in the heavenly spirit flower array, as long as she wanted to return to the primal chaos space, she would not be able to do anything to her. It was the best choice for her to stay. Nan Yisheng looked at her eyes for a long time, as if he could see through her deep gaze. Chapter 1883. "All right." She gently nodded and smiled beside his ear. "I will think of a way to escape." As soon as her voice fell, she pulled him to the front of the life gate. "Goodbye, Nan Yisheng." Little did she know that before she could finish her words, she was pulled into a warm embrace. It was just like that day when he was heavily injured. He still didn't care about his bleeding wounds and tightly hugged her. At this moment, Luo Qingqian's eyes unconsciously turned red and tears almost fell. "Unless I die, as long as you come back, I will always be here." As soon as his voice fell, he seemed to feel that this sentence wasn't right and changed his words. "You have to come back quickly. I will miss you a lot." She closed her eyes and felt the warm embrace. She tried to bury this hug in the bottom of her heart and cherish it forever. Luo Qingqian personally sent Nan Yisheng off and stayed in the heavenly spirit flower array. She told her a story from 400 years ago. Luo Qingqian found that although she was a god, her heart was still very young. She had once fantasized about a love that surpassed a god, but unfortunately, she failed. Luo Qingqian couldn't say who was wrong. She only felt that perhaps this was their life, and she couldn't explain it clearly. The days spent with she in the heavenly spirit flower array were quite peaceful. She could actually create many different scenes and write many scripts, allowing her to see all the love in the world. These days passed in a flash, and 10 years passed. Qingqian, Do you really believe that he will wait for you? She had changed into a light pink palace dress. Blinking her clear eyes, she looked at her and said, "Most of the men in this era are fond of the new and dislike the old. Now that 10 years have passed, perhaps he already has another lover." Luo Qingshun heard this and took a sip of Biluakan tea. "Lord Flower Goddess, won't you know once you let me out?" "Umph, you tricked me into letting you out again." She snorted. "Do you feel that accompanying me is very boring?" She looked a little wronged. She pouted like a child. Little did he know, Luo Qingshun nodded her head and said, "Yes." She angrily stomped her feet and said, "Why don't we make a bet?" "What?" "The Mu Kingdom has a princess who was born mute. She doesn't know how to speak, and her brain doesn't seem to work very well." She looked at her with a smirk and said, "I can give you a chance." Luo Qingshun slightly knit her brows and cleared her throat. "Speak clearly." After Mu Hanch abdicated and lived in seclusion in the mountains, his younger brother became the king of the Mu Kingdom. The Nanzhao Kingdom is still the strongest among the three kingdoms. Naturally, the Mu Kingdom has to offer a few beauties to the southern prince. God is indeed a god. Even though he is in the heavenly spirit flower array, he can still see everything in the world. Luo Qingshun's brows moved slightly. Suppressing her excitement, she looked at her and said, "But the current Mu Wang shouldn't be a fool, right? He wants to use a mute to curry favor with Nan Yisheng. Of course, it's not just the mute princess. A total of 5 beauties offered at the same time." She smiled and said, "If I let your soul possess the princess body—" Cough, cough. Luo Qingshun cleared her throat and interrupted her. "Since there are other people offering to Nan Yisheng, why do we need a mute princess? This may not be a good thing for the Mu Kingdom." Chapter 1884. "What do you want to bet with me?" Luo Qingshun looked up and a faint light flashed in her eyes. Could it be that she was tired of looking at her and wanted to send her away? "If you can use other methods to let Nan Yisheng recognize you without speaking, I will let your body leave the heavenly spirit flower array." She blinked and said, "Writing is also not allowed." Luo Qingshun rolled her eyes at her and said, "Then what do you mean by other methods? You have to think about it yourself." She gently shook her hand and said, "I'll give you 5 to think about it." "Deal." She was stunned and blinked with all her might. "I haven't started counting yet." "Omnipotent God." Luo Qingshun curled her lips into a smile. "Can we go faster?" 10 years. 10 years had passed unknowingly. She already couldn't wait to see him, no matter what his identity was. Humph. She lightly snorted, and the surrounding scene began to change. Finally, a blue door appeared in front of her. This was the life door that led to the outside world. She hadn't seen it in 10 years. "If you lose, you really will have to accompany me here for the rest of your life." She's clear and carefree voice sounded in her ears. This time, she responded to him. "I won't lose." When she opened her eyes again, she was in a carriage heading to the Mu Kingdom. Other than her, there was also a maid with a double ball hairstyle. She was quite good to her. At least she gave her the memories that this body should have. Although, it didn't make a difference to her. But at least she knew that this maid was called Lu'er. "Young miss, this time, the master is really worried about you on this trip to the Nanzhao Kingdom." Lu'er looked at her with a sad face and said, "Lu'er also feels bad for young miss." Luo Qingshun was stunned and looked at her in a daze. She blinked and said in her heart, "What's wrong with this person? Why is she crying with me the moment she got here?" "Because the host body is very miserable." "Damn! System, why are you back?" "There's a barrier in the heavenly spirit flower array, so I naturally don't come out." "Outside, she's ability is not as good as the system." "Then what about my ability?" "The host's ability follows the host, not the physical body." "Very well, you can leave now." Luo Qingshun raised her eyes and smiled. She gently patted Lu'er's shoulder, indicating for her to stop crying. "Miss, ooh, so noisy. Why are you crying?" "We're going to see Prince Nan of the Nanzhao Kingdom, not to mourn." A sharp voice came from the side of the carriage. Luo Qingshun lifted the curtain slightly, and Mu Jiao's figure appeared in front of her. This was King Mu's 7th daughter. Her status was 1 level higher than hers, and she was a princess. As for his personality, he lived up to his name. Luo Qingshun snorted coldly. She rolled her eyes at her and pulled the curtain down. The other party was obviously shocked and instantly flew into a rage. You damn Mu Shui. Do you want to die? Mu Shui was the name of this body. Bathed in the light like snow, I have always felt that it was an especially beautiful name. Luo Qingshun was too lazy to pay attention to her. She quietly put the exquisite ring on the ring finger of her right hand and headed in the direction of the Nanjiao kingdom. She didn't know why, but at this moment, she felt inexplicably excited. Nan Yisheng, Nan Yisheng, Nan Yisheng. She silently chanted his name in her heart, saying what she wanted to say. Chapter 1885. 8 hours later, the group arrived at the Nanjiao kingdom. The moment she alighted from the carriage, the sunlight shone on her fair cheeks. She narrowed her eyes as she looked at the people coming and going. The scene in front of her was strange yet familiar. She was finally back. Hey, you mute. Didn't you hear what I said just now? Mu Jiao rushed up and wanted to grab her by the collar, but she turned nimbly and dodged perfectly. Luo Qingshun shrugged. Her expression was as calm as water, as if she didn't care about her at all. Mu Jiao was so angry that her face turned ashen. We're about to enter the palace. The envoy glanced at them and tried to mediate. Everyone, please don't make a fuss. I don't care, apologize to me. Mu Jiao didn't give up. She put her hands on her hips and looked at her angrily. Apologize? This person couldn't be an idiot, right? How could she apologize if she didn't know how to speak? Your Highness, aren't you making things difficult for Princess Mu Shui? The envoy frowned and said, Everyone is waiting. Why don't we enter the palace first? Oh. The next second, she raised her head proudly and said, How could I forget? You're a mute. MMP. Luo Qingshun scolded her silently in her heart, but her expression was still fearless. She didn't forget to stick out her tongue and didn't care about the other party's mockery. There was a saying, I'd just like to see you want to kill me, but you can't kill me. I'll make you angry. Sure enough, when Mu Jiao saw Luo Qingshun's expression, her delicate little face turned ashen. Another woman standing next to her, who was also a princess, said, Why do you have to compete with a mute? She's just a little pretty and is here to get in the numbers. Luo Qingshun naturally knew that although the 5 people who came to the Nanjiao kingdom were similar in status, there was still a difference in status. 1 princess and 4 princesses. In terms of status, Mu Jiao was indeed more honorable than them. In addition, she was a mute princess, so the others naturally sided with her. That's right, my mouth is dirty. Mu Jiao snorted and walked forward without looking back. Luo Qingshun looked at her back and sneered. Nan Yisheng would like this kind of person? Cut off her head and let her sit on it. At noon, the envoy brought the 5 of them into the palace. The moment she stepped into the palace, her heart was pounding and her palms were sweating unconsciously. She could feel her own nervousness and kept imagining the scene when they met. Would he recognize her? Unfortunately, after the 5 of them, after they were arranged in the palace's palace. When the envoy returned, he brought back a lot of gold, silver, jewels, and silks. He sighed softly and said, Princeton has been busy with government affairs recently. Perhaps he doesn't have time to meet the masters. These things are bestowed by Prince Nan to the masters. It also represents the friendship between Nanjiao Kingdom and Mu Kingdom. What does Prince mean? Do you look down on us? Mu Jiao crossed her arms and rolled her eyes at Luo Qingshun as she angrily said, Is it because we have a mute? Princess, you've wronged Princess Mu Shui. Prince Nin doesn't even know how many of us came and what we look like. It's impossible for him to know that there's a mute among us. The envoy glanced at Luo Qingshun and couldn't help but speak up for her. I say, is there something going on between you and the mute? Mu Jiao pointed at his nose and said, Why do you always speak up for the mute? In the next second, there was a slap. Luo Qingshun didn't say anything and slapped Mu Jiao's face. Chapter 1886. You actually dare to hit me. Mu Jiao stared at her in disbelief, her eyes wide open. She had never thought that Luo Qingshan would dare to treat her like this. She stood rooted to the ground, unable to regain her senses for a long time. In the next second, Luo Qingshan took a sip of her Biluakun tea and shrugged her shoulders. Her expression seemed to say, "Come hit me if you dare." Mu Jiao was so angry that her face turned green. The other three people were also shocked, but they didn't dare to approach Luo Qingshan. They felt that there was an inexplicable aura about her that made them shudder. "Who are you people? Why is it so noisy?" A clear female voice came from not far away. Luo Qingshan looked in the direction of the voice. A 7- or 8-year-old girl wearing a light yellow dress was looking at them in the room with her head tilted. Her round eyes were especially cute. "Little Princess Nianqing, my little ancestor, don't run around." The eunuchs behind her followed in groups. They panted as they said, "If you fall, our heads will roll." Luo Qingshan blinked and looked at the young face for a long time before looking away. She was called Nianqing. Was this little girl related to Nan Yixing? Could it be that she was his daughter? Thinking of this, Luo Qingshan shook her head gently and threw away her thoughts. Those eunuchs had called her princess just now, so she shouldn't be Nan Yixing's child. She should be the child of an older or younger sister. "Who are you?" Mu Jiao was already angry. Now the little girl was talking to her in such a high and mighty tone, she was naturally unhappy. "How dare you?" The eunuch leading the group scolded. "How dare a girl from another country speak to our princess like that? You must have a death wish." Mu Jiao sized up the leading eunuch from head to toe. She frowned at the luxurious clothes he was wearing and asked, "Which eunuch are you?" "Minister of Internal Affairs, Chao Duong." Chao Duong roared angrily, not to mention the fact that the women who have been offered to Prince Nan in recent years have never even seen his face. "Even if they did, do you know the identity of our princess? When this little princess was born, her mother was on the brink of death due to a difficult labor. Before she died, she entrusted her daughter to Nan Yixing and said, 'How about we call this child Nianqing? Can you take good care of her for me?' Of course, he knew how important Luo Qingshan was in Nan Yixing's heart. Letting his daughter have this name would at least ensure that she would live a carefree life. Because of this, Prince Nin doted on this little princess the moment she was born. Compared to any of the other princesses, she was a superior existence. "It's just a princess," Mu Jiao muttered softly. "We have a princess too. Mute princess. Someone like her wants to be uncle's concubine? Shameless." Nianqing snorted and waved her sleeve. Her eyes were full of arrogance. It had to be said that this little princess was really arrogant. "You?" Mu Jiao felt like she was going to be angered to death today. She took a deep breath and suppressed all her anger without knowing the situation. However, she didn't say the words that were on the tip of her tongue. Chapter 1887. When Nianqing finished speaking, Mu Jiao's eyes rolled back. Unable to vent her anger, she fainted. Everyone looked at each other, then looked at Luo Qingshan. She raised her eyebrows and slowly got up. She stepped over Mu Jiao's body and walked towards the inner hall. If she didn't take this opportunity to find a room facing the south, when would she? She slept very well that night. After Mu Jiao fainted from anger, she was still in a daze. The other three saw her irritable actions today and didn't dare to provoke her. This was how the world worked. Fear the strong, bully the weak, and fear the strong. However, Luo Qingshan didn't expect to not see Nan Yixing for a few days. Just like what that little girl called Nianqing said, Nan Yixing didn't plan to see them at all. Luo Qingshan couldn't help but mutter in her heart. So decisive? I heard that Prince Nan is going to the Flower Spirit House again today. Why don't we meet by chance? You mean the Flower Spirit House next to the Heavenly Spirit Flower Array? Yes. I heard that Prince Nin will go there once every few days. I want to go too. Shoo, lower your voice. Don't let that mute hear you. Jiao, don't worry. Normal mutes don't have good hearing. That's true. Ha 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 ha. After everyone finished speaking, they looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. Luo Qingshan in the room knit her brows. Although she felt that their voices were a bit too loud, she still heard what they said. Heavenly Spirit Flower Array. She muttered these 4 words silently and frowned slightly. The four people who had mocked her just now returned to Mu Jiao's room and revealed a sinister look. Mu Jiao was the first to speak. Do you think she will go to the flower spirit house? I think so. Another person said, if I didn't hear eunuchs say that that place is Prince Nan's forbidden area, I would also want to meet her by chance. That's right. I heard that no one who trespassed into the flower spirit house survived. Aren't we sending her to her death? Yo, don't tell me you still feel sorry for her. If you feel sorry for her, then die with her. Mu Jiao glared at them fiercely and said, I, Mu Jiao, don't like anyone who can live in this world. Luo Qingshun, who was sitting in her room, didn't hesitate to put on a moon-white coat and directly went to the flower spirit house. After all, he had finally found a chance to see Nan Yisheng. How could he just sit around and wait for death? They were women who had been given to Prince Nan, so they couldn't move around freely in the palace. Luo Qingshun, who was familiar with the route in the palace, chose a remote path to the flower spirit house. The snow in the sky fell slightly, and a bright crescent moon hung in the sky. Suddenly, an inexplicable sense of uneasiness came from the bottom of his heart. Standing in front of the heavenly spirit flower array, Luo Qingshun had an indescribable surprise. The original golden palace had already been demolished. Beside the huge heavenly spirit flower array, there were only 4 crystal pillars and a house that was built out of thin air. 3 large words were written on top of the house with oak wood, Flower Spirit House. In the middle of such a huge palace, the presence of such a room made people feel that it was very out of place. Chapter 1888. Luo Qingshun took a deep breath, raised her eyes, and walked into the house. She pushed open the wooden door. With a creak, the cold wind blew in from the hole, making her shiver. It was very dark inside the house. Luo Qingshun took a lantern from the door and walked in. When she slowly raised the lantern, her eyes immediately turned red. The entire Flower Spirit House was exactly the same as the inner hall when they got married. Every brick and tile, every blade of grass and tree, whether it was the placement of the orchids, the position of the candlesticks, or the huge bronze mirror. It was a perfect replica. Luo Qingshun looked at the scene in front of her. She only felt her heart skip a beat. She wanted to cry out loud, but found that she couldn't make a sound. She always felt that she had been muddle-headed for 10 years, but she didn't know how lonely and unbearable these 10 years were for Nan Yisheng. Maybe she should try harder to escape and use the faster time to return to his side. Who'll let you in? You don't want to live anymore, do you? An extremely cold voice came from behind her, without a trace of warmth. And this voice, to Luo Qingshun, was so excited and familiar. She gently fanned her eyelashes and slowly turned around. Leaning against the bright moon, she stared blankly at him, looking at his bewitching face that could make people indulge in it for eternity. His face was like a peerless work of art that was carefully carved out of the best jade by the heavens. His dark eyes carried an incomparably powerful aura. This Nan Yisheng, she seemed very familiar, but also very strange. She looked at his eyes, took a deep breath, and pursed her lips. She couldn't speak, but her tears fell first. Nan Yisheng, with a long sword in his hand, saw her like this. His eyes fell into a bit of a daze, but soon his eyes dimmed. He opened his mouth again. Can't you see the plaque at the door? Those who enter will die. As soon as his voice fell, Nan Yisheng, with a long sword in hand, jumped in the direction of Luo Qingshun to attack. His sword was very fast, worthy of being called the world's #1 expert. Between the sword and the light, there was no way for her to escape. But in fact, with her skills, she could still escape unscathed. But she didn't. She closed her eyes. The moment the blade light flashed in front of her eyes, a strand of black hair slowly fell down. It landed on the snowy ground, on the tip of his heart. In the next second, he suddenly raised his eyes and looked at her with his deep eyes. Why didn't you dodge? She slowly opened her eyes and looked at the sword that was only a hair's breadth away from her neck. Her eyebrows trembled, and a drop of sparkling and translucent tear fell onto his sword. In the blink of an eye, she raised her right hand and gripped the edge of the sword tightly. Bright red blood dripped down drop by drop. She pressed harder with her palm, and the blood gushed out like a fountain. However, her expression was indifferent, and she didn't even frown. It was as if she wasn't the one in pain, and it wasn't her blood that was flowing. Her face was as calm as the snow on the ground, as cold as frost. Nan Yisheng's right hand shook, and he directly let go of the sword. There seemed to be some reproach in his voice. "What are you doing?" Why did he feel inexplicably excited at this moment when a woman he had never seen before stood in front of him? Why did his heart hurt inexplicably when he saw her bleeding palm? Why did he feel a sense of familiarity from her clear eyes? Too many whys flashed in his mind, but he couldn't get an answer, until the sword hilt fell to the ground. Luo Qingshun came in front of him at a speed he never had before. Chapter 1889. The bright moon in the sky shone on her snow-white face. Nan Yisheng was completely stunned. His eyes were wide open, watching her long eyelashes tremble slightly. His mind was blank. Why was she so fast? With such speed, her martial arts must be above his. But when he attacked her just now, why didn't she dodge? And why did she kiss him? Nan Yisheng felt his whole body stiffen. Even the lingering kiss followed the other person's rhythm. For the first time, he felt that he was the passive party in the matter of kissing. In the past, he and his princess consort. The next second, Luo Qingshun's figure flashed through his mind. She was wearing a pomegranate red pleated dress with flowers scattered on it. Her long black hair was slanted with a Ryonkan hairpin. When she smiled, she was so beautiful. At this moment, he suddenly pushed the woman in front of him away. As soon as he said the first word, his collar was gently pulled by Luo Qingshun. Her eyebrows trembled slightly, and the corners of her mouth curved into a very faint smile. Her complacent look was so familiar. Who on earth are you?" Nan Yisheng didn't struggle. When he spoke, he seemed a little nervous. Luo Qingshun nodded. She gently picked up a branch on the ground and wrote 2 words in the snow. Guess. He looked at these 2 words for a long time. A faint liguang flashed through his inky black eyes. When he looked up again, his eyes were filled with endless gentleness. He asked tentatively, Qingshun? In the end, when Luo Qingshun heard him say her name, she couldn't help but tear up again. Once upon a time, he said that her handwriting was very special. It wasn't the kind of handwriting that was comfortable and elegant like a lady from a noble family. It was round and round, with a touch of cuteness. But now, just based on the 2 words guess, he couldn't be sure that the other party was Luo Qingshun. His affirmation actually came from the kiss that he actually didn't want to push away. Luo Qingshun stood there and watched the change in his expression. She watched as his deep eyes filled with pleasant surprise and watched as his eyes gradually turned red. She moved her lips slightly, and just as she was about to say something, she was suddenly pulled into a warm embrace. The strength of his hug was just like his appearance. Even after 10 years, there was still no change. He felt as though he had melted her into his bones at this moment. His trembling voice kept ringing in her ears. "It's good that you're back. I miss you so much." For 10 long years, he thought of her every day and night. There were countless things he wanted to say to her, but at this moment, he found himself at a loss for words. Perhaps only a strong hug could release the longing in his heart and make him deeply feel that this was not a dream. After an unknown period of time, he slowly released her. She swayed the branch in her hand and smiled playfully. When she was about to bend down to write on the snow, his hands suddenly hugged her waist. Without saying anything, he leaned down and kissed her. This time, he was like a declaration of war. He completely took the initiative and took back all the places that had been invaded. Luo Qingshun didn't even have time to react before she was brought into another world. Chapter 1890. Even she didn't think that Luo Qingshun would return to Nan Yisheng's side so smoothly. She always thought that it would be like the palace courtyard, with some twists and turns. She didn't know that he recognized her. Whether it was based on her feelings or the words she wrote, Luo Qingshun won this bet in the end. However, the god in the heavenly spirit flower array pretended not to hear. "Can't you speak?" In the Star Palace, Nan Yixing helped her bandage the wound on her hand while asking. His dark eyes had a touch of heartache. Luo Qingchun shrugged and gently nodded while eating an orange. Is this she's doing? Nan Yixing looked up and didn't forget to touch her head while bandaging her hand. Luo Qingchun broke off a piece of orange and put it in his mouth. She blinked and nodded again. It had to be said that after 10 years, Nan Yixing's appearance almost didn't change at all. But why did he give people the feeling that he became stupid? In this world, other than she, who else could do anything to her? Forget it, it doesn't matter. Anyway, it's good that you're back. Nan Yixing raised his right hand and gently touched her little nose. It doesn't matter if you can speak or not. In the next second, Luo Qingchun looked at him seriously and decisively shook her head. She picked up his palm and wrote 4 words. This is very important. This baby's voice is so nice. Why should I be a mute? I can still cry. Isn't it cute? What's with your expression? Nan Yixing looked at her angry face, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously curved into a doting smile. You're still very cute. That night, Luo Qingchun didn't go back to the side palace where Mu Jiao and the others were, but directly lived in the Star Palace. For her, it was a place she couldn't be more familiar with. And it was because she didn't come back that those women who thought they set the perfect trap couldn't sit still. It's already been a night. Why hasn't that mute come back yet? She must have been taken away or locked up by King Nanzhao. Impossible. If Prince Nin wants to deal with her, he doesn't need to do it secretly. But we didn't hear anything. Sister Jiao Jiao, what do you think we should do? You're just stupid. Mu Jiao crossed her arms and snorted coldly. What does her leaving have to do with us? What does her life or death have to do with us? Do you want to follow in her footsteps? The man's face paled, and he hurriedly shook his head. How could that be? Sister Jiao Jiao is always right. Is there a mute in our Mu country? Definitely not. I'll send you to observe the situation over there in the next few days. Report to me if there's any movement. Yes. The next morning, Luo Qingchun put on a tan-colored long dress. It was her favorite dress when she was still the crown princess of Nan Yixing. Standing at the entrance of the Star Palace, the sunlight poured down on her body. Closing her eyes, she felt that the world was peaceful. Aren't you the girl that the Mu Kingdom offered to Uncle? Nianqing looked at her and blinked. Why are you here? This isn't a place you can come to. In Nianqing's impression, there were so many women that day, but the only one she liked was this person in front of her. So, when they met again, she didn't forget to remind her. Luo Qingchun gently gestured and pointed at the garden not far away, asking her if she wanted to take a stroll. Chapter 1891. She nodded as the corners of her lips curled up. This child was indeed likable. It wasn't because of her special status, but because her taste was really good. Nianqing was stunned. She glanced at the starry hall and said, "All right, it's better to leave this place." The imperial garden that she hadn't seen for 10 years was still as beautiful as before. Even the cold winter, the winter sweet still bloomed like a blazing sun. Oh, I was wondering why the mute was missing. So you snuck into the imperial garden on your own. Mu Jiao held a peony chiffon fan as she walked forward. She looked so coquettish that it made one's eyes hurt. What does it have to do with you whether I come to the imperial garden or not? Nianqing scoffed. Her eyes were filled with hostility. In the next second, Mu Jiao shrugged disdainfully and said, I never bicker with little girls. Luo Qingchun shook her head mockingly. She took Nianqing's hand and turned to leave. Mu Jiao saw that Luo Qingchun wasn't going to pay her any attention. She was so angry that her face turned red. She shouted behind her, You deserve it. Your parents died because of you and your sister was defiled. Isn't it all because you're a mute and a jinx? Luo Qingchun was stunned. She didn't feel anything. She only felt that she was listening to her talk about what had happened to this body as a bystander. However, she felt a little unhappy. She frowned. Just as she was trying to think of a way to turn the tables, Nianqing, who was standing beside her, picked up a snowball and threw it at her face. She didn't forget to snort. Ugly people are always up to mischief. Luo Qingchun's eyes lit up. She gave Nianqing a thumbs up. Bang! A snowflake smashed into her face, making her look especially ferocious. You? She picked up a snowball and was about to throw it at Nianqing's face. However, she changed direction and threw it at Luo Qingqian's face. After all, even if she was angry, she knew that this little princess called Nianqing was not someone she could afford to offend. But that mute was different. Just as Luo Qingqian was about to raise her hand to block Mu Jiao's snowball, a familiar figure appeared in front of her. That man stood in front of her just like that, blocking the cold snowflakes. His every movement carried the aura of a king. Prince Nan. Mu Jiao was stunned for a moment before joy flashed through her eyes. She immediately knelt down and saluted. Mu Jiao greets Prince Nan. The other three women standing beside Mu Jiao were completely stunned. They only came back to their senses after 3 seconds and bowed one after another. Nan Yisheng frowned slightly, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. Who exactly were these people? They actually dared to openly bully her people in her palace. Did they not want to live anymore? Who is it? In the next second, he said coldly, I'll give you 3 seconds to tell me who you are. Nan Yisheng's voice was cold to the bone, without a trace of warmth. It was as if as long as he stood on the spot, his entire body would emit an endless stream of cold air. Mu Jiao didn't realize it. She blushed and said shyly, Jiao Jiao is a princess from the Mu Kingdom. I'm a woman dedicated to Prince Nan. Her voice was extremely sharp. She was a completely different person from when she was confronting Luo Qingqian. Chapter 1892. Nan Yisheng frowned, a sharp light flashing through his eyes. The Mu Kingdom? Yes. Don't you know that I hate the Mu Kingdom the most? He didn't give the other party any face, his voice cold and resolute. You dare to mention the Mu Kingdom to me? Mu Jiao froze, beads of sweat appearing on her forehead. Hearing Nan Yisheng's words, she suddenly felt nervous. Shouldn't it be that they met by chance? Shouldn't it be that Prince Nan took a liking to her beauty the moment he saw her? Shouldn't it be that she was the most favored harem next? Why was it so sudden? She didn't feel the warmth of a chance encounter, but the coldness of a murderous intent. She frowned, looking at Luo Qingqian's skirt, then suddenly raised her eyes. But Prince Nan, she's also a princess of our Mu Kingdom, and she's mute. Although her heart was still full of anger, she didn't dare to be too arrogant in Nan Yisheng's presence. She deliberately restrained herself when she spoke. The next second, Nan Yisheng's cold eyes narrowed, the haze in his eyes almost freezing her. His thin lips whispered, It seems that you really don't want to live. Chao Duong, this servant is here. After all, he had been by Nan Yisheng's side for so many years. As the head steward of the palace, he knew very well that Prince Nan was really angry at this moment. The air was filled with coldness, and more coldness. These women from the Mu Kingdom are to be exiled to the borders. Without my order, they will never be recalled. Nan Yisheng narrowed his eyes and snorted. You should be glad that I was in a good mood when I found her. Otherwise, it would be your heads that fell today. As soon as his voice fell, he took Luo Qingqian's hand without another word and walked forward. Mu Jiao's face instantly paled, and she could even feel her ears buzzing. The borders? What kind of place was that? She was a princess who had lived a life of luxury since childhood. How could she go to that kind of place? Prince Nan. The next second, she pointed at Luo Qingqian with a trembling voice. She's also a woman who was offered to you with us. Since we're going to the borders as punishment, why can't she go? It had to be said, when Mu Jiao said this, Luo Qingqian couldn't help mocking her in her heart. She really was stupid. No wonder her name didn't even appear in the bronze mirror. Both her IQ and EQ were in the negative. If she hadn't been born in a royal family, she would have died long ago. Nan Yisheng stopped. His beautiful eyes sparkled as he looked at her and said, Because she is a woman for me, I will accept her. If you are not convinced, what can you do? The moment his voice fell, the corners of his mouth curled up into a beautiful arc. His right hand instantly wrapped around her waist, and his deep gaze fell on her cherry lips. In an instant, he kissed her in front of everyone. Everyone was shocked. Nianqing was the only one who let out a yelp before her mouth was immediately covered by Chao Duong. Luo Qingshun could feel her cheeks flushing red, spreading to her ears. Her breathing quickened, and her heart pounded uncontrollably like a little deer. At that moment, Luo Qingshun was still thinking about what Nan Yixing had said to Mu Jiao. That tone, wasn't it the tone she usually used when she was insufferably arrogant? And these words actually came from the mouth of the male lead. It really made her have a kind of inconceivable feeling. Chapter 1893. No one in the entire Nanzhao kingdom knew why the mute from the Mu kingdom held such an important position in Prince Nan's heart. She didn't say a word, but she became the most important person in Prince Nan's heart. Everyone thought that since Prince Nan had his first consort, he would soon have a second one. After all, everyone in the Nanzhao kingdom knew that the only woman Prince Nan loved was the Wu people's saintess, Luo Qingshun. But now, the woman he loved deeply was the woman Mu Guijin gave him. Although she was beautiful, she was a mute. But reality slapped them in the face. Until 3 years later, Nan Yixing only had this mute by his side. A woman named Mu Shui replaced Luo Qingshun in his heart and became the most favored in the harem. But perhaps the emperor's love was too extravagant. That consort named Mu Shui suddenly fell ill, and it was very serious. Prince Nin looked for all the famous doctors in the world, but they couldn't cure her illness. He could only watch her life slip away bit by bit. In front of the sickbed, she pursed her lips and weakly opened her eyes. Although her face was very pale, her eyes were bright and clear. "Don't say it." Nan Yixing sat in front of her bed and held her hand tightly. He choked out, "I know what you want to say." Luo Qingshun looked at his face. His originally charming face had a few more shallow wrinkles. Looking carefully, there were even a few strands of white hair. Suddenly, she felt an inexplicable heartache. He seemed to have aged overnight. The speed of his aging was so fast. She slowly nodded to him and used all her strength to hold his thumb in her right hand. A drop of crystal tear fell from the corner of her eye. In these 3 years, her life had undergone an earth-shaking change. She couldn't speak, not a word. But no matter what she wanted to do or eat, Nan Yixing could tell with just one look. He seemed to be her voice, guessing all the words she couldn't say. So in these 3 years, she never felt that not being able to speak was a painful torture for her. Instead, she established a special tacit understanding with Nan Yixing. But at this moment, the moment she was about to close her eyes, she couldn't say the words in her heart to him. But he still said that he knew. "I'll be fine, don't worry about me." He gently wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes and kissed her eyes with his thin lips. He whispered in her ear, "I'll still wait for you. Whether it's in this life or the next, I know you'll come find me." Those were the last words she heard before she lost consciousness. Nan Yixing really understood her. That was what she wanted to say. Please wait for her, whether in this life or the next. Please wait for her at the end. In the winter of the 2nd year, when the first snow fell, the heavenly spirit flower array shone with a dazzling golden light. At that moment, the golden light actually covered the bright moonlight. Everyone thought that a god had descended. Only he trembled. A woman dressed in a moon-white brocade robe stood outside the formation. Her face was devastatingly beautiful, and her eyes were clear and carefree. She picked up the lantern in front of Hua Ling's house and walked inside. A man dressed in coarse cloth was watering the flowers on the windowsill. The air was filled with the faint fragrance of orchids. "Nan Yixing," she softly called out to him, her lips curling into a faint smile. She could feel his back stiffen, and the shower head in his hand fell to the ground. Chapter 1894. The most beautiful thing in the world is meeting you when you are young and being together 10 years later. Nan Yixing always longed for someone who can hold on to me and not let me go through all these years. Not letting me fall, not letting me sink, not letting me go with the flow, not letting me fall asleep. When I was 18 years old, I finally met such a person. The moment she raised her eyes, my bleak life, since I was a child, I knew that my life was different from others. In the royal family, every step I took was like walking on thin ice. I didn't know who poisoned me, but they told me that I had to find a way to survive. That year, I wasn't even 10 years old. The first time I saw her was on the heavenly snow peak. When the avalanche happened, I knew I was going to die, but I didn't think that the heavens would give me a chance to survive. Not only did I escape danger, but I also met her. At that time, she was only 5 years old. Her eyes were as clear as water, without any impurities. She was so beautiful, standing quietly in the snow, like a beautiful painting. So beautiful. But after she helped me defeat the serpent, I never saw her again. I worked hard to become strong, using all means to become the Sword Immortal's disciple, and practicing martial arts. All my brothers didn't know about this, but I let my father know, because I knew that if he didn't know, I wouldn't be able to get the throne. If I couldn't get the throne, I wouldn't be able to protect her. 400 years ago, everyone in the palace knew about the Wu people's Saintess and the Nanzhao king. Naturally, I also knew that the Saintess was used as a sacrifice to the heavenly spirit flower array. But I didn't want her to go. Only when you become strong can you do what you want to do, can you become omnipotent for someone. At that time, I thought so and made a deal with my father. I had to get the throne, but the condition was that my princess must be the Wu people's Saintess. My father was very worried that the curse of the heavenly spirit flower array would take away the entire Nanzhao kingdom, so he didn't have any objections to my proposal. At that time, I knew that as long as I could meet her again, she would be my princess. But even so, at that time, my heart was still filled with gratitude. I was grateful to her for helping me when I needed it the most. I was grateful to her for giving me a new life. I always thought that I wanted to repay her for her kindness, but when I saw her again, I overturned all my thoughts. It was the feeling of looking back and looking at the past with a single glance, even if one was reincarnated. I can't explain it clearly. I can't understand it at that time. I didn't know she was the saint of the Wu people. I just felt my heart palpitate when I looked at her. Actually, I had planned to have Shanggong invite her to the Star Palace that night. Little did I know that she would come to my bedroom alone in her night clothes. The moment she took me hostage, I knew she was the saint of the Wu people because the mark on her forehead was exactly the same as where I was injured. However, I didn't say it out loud. Instead, I felt a burst of joy in my heart. In fact, I was even happier than when I first met her. She seemed to want to save someone. She stuffed something sweet in her mouth and pretended to tell me that it was poison. How could I not know that it wasn't poison at all? But when I followed her words and helped her save people, I felt especially warm. Chapter 1895. When I called her Miss Assassin, I could feel the faint light in her eyes. It was very beautiful. She might have thought that we had only met once, but I had already made my decision. My crown princess was her. Most likely, no one would have thought that I would choose a palace made over all the other beauties that were prepared for me. When we went to the Golden Palace, Royal Father asked me why, but I only said a few words. She was the Wu people's holy maiden. I saw Royal Father's expression change from a frown to a smile, but at that time, my heart sank. In Royal Father's eyes, the Wu people's holy maiden was the sacrifice of the Nanzhao kingdom. This was something that even the entire Wu people tacitly agreed with. After all, a person's death could save millions of people. The Wu people's patriarch cared about the people of the world, so he naturally thought that sacrifice was necessary. But I didn't want her to die, but I wanted to take her as my wife. After thinking about it for a night, I decided not to ask about the result, but to seize every moment. At the very least, I wanted to spend a happy time with her. Then, I would bury it deep in my heart and accept the judgment of all the people of the Nanzhao kingdom. At that time, she might have already been sent back to the Mu kingdom, because I found out that she had once been Mu Hansh's hidden guard. She had risked her life for him and suffered serious injuries for him. When I found out about this, I felt an indescribable pain in my heart. It wasn't because of jealousy, but because in those long years, she had suffered and was injured, but I couldn't protect her. I felt that her life should be very happy, that there should be someone who absolutely loved her by her side and gave her everything. And I wanted to become that person, to become someone she could rely on, to become her hero. On the day of her wedding, she received countless people's congratulations and worship. At that moment, I was even happier than she was. I didn't know why, but when she shone so brightly, I actually felt proud. If someone asked me when I was happiest in my life, it would probably be when she was officially my crown princess, standing firmly by my side. I always felt that in those days, whether it was the Nanjiao kingdom or the Wu people, they were not important to my heart. How I wished that the curse of the heavenly spirit flower array would never come, and that I could always be by her side, accompanying her to see every scenery of the Nanjiao kingdom. But I know that some days will come. In the past, I never thought that one day I would actually poison my own father with my own hands, but the truth is that I did. And he did it so decisively because he told me the time for the holy maiden sacrifice heavenly spirit flower array was almost up. At that time, I was stunned. Why were happy times always so short? Why couldn't I have more memories? Leaving the Nanjiao kingdom in a hurry, I brought everything for her, because I knew that she would never come back after this trip, and I wouldn't let her come back either. Although I'm extremely unwilling to send her back to the Mu Empire, I know that she is the safest in the Mu Empire. The reason why Mu Hanch sent her to kill me was probably because he wanted to protect her. Yet, she didn't even make a move. It was because of this that I felt even more guilty towards her, because I knew that she truly liked me. As for me, I can't love her openly. Chapter 1896. In the end, she still found out about everything. That night, when Mu Hanch summoned her alone, I knew that she would know everything that I had hidden from her. I stayed alone in Mu Shui Hall and lit up all the candles in the room. I had promised her that I would leave a candle on and wait for her to return. Actually, I was very nervous at that time. My mind was blank, and I didn't know what to think or how to face her. That was until the moment she appeared in front of me. When her pair of indifferent eyes looked at me, my heart thumped, and I became deathly still. Even though I knew that this moment would come, when it really came, my heart was filled with despair. All the questions she asked me made my heart ache, but I had no choice but to answer yes. Because those were the truth, and because I wanted to leave her here, I could bear all the bad things by myself. She definitely couldn't die, but what I didn't expect was that Mu Hanch didn't intend to let me go. He was a very smart person and naturally knew my identity. Thus, he made all the preparations he could before coming to deal with me. Facing nearly 1,000 death warriors, I knew that I would definitely die. I was very magnanimous. I wasn't afraid of death, but I was afraid that she would see my corpse. I was afraid that she would be sad, but I was her hero. I could give it my all and fight until the last second. The blood on my body dripped onto the white snow. I could feel my life slipping away bit by bit. When it reached a critical point, her figure flashed through my mind. The first time I saw her, her clear eyes were so clear at the moment I was about to die. I thought I was going to die. I thought I would never see her again. I really wanted to tell her that I loved her, but I couldn't do it. But I really didn't expect that she would appear in front of me in such a radiant manner. She looked at Mu Hanch with a long sword in her hand, her eyes filled with determination. My heart suddenly trembled. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't. She just stood there, in front of me protectively. Perhaps she was the true hero of my life, a beautiful scenery that could make one's heart tremble. She used an inconceivable method to hold Mu Hanch hostage and let me and Song Li leave first. Actually, I was worried about her, but I trusted her. I knew that she would be able to escape because she was my pride. At that moment, I could finally love her openly with all my strength. She insisted on returning to the Nanjiao kingdom with me. She said that there must be another way to break the curse of the heavenly spirit flower array. There was such a method, but I did not think that it was really another trap. In the heavenly spirit flower array, the person I love is not her. She was too strong. I lost all my memories after entering the heavenly spirit flower array. But she did not. She was the one who caused the separation between my memory and the script. She was the one who successfully made she appear. But even so, it doesn't change the fact that we have to separate. One of us has to stay here. This was a cruel thing for both of us, but she didn't give us a choice. The moment I left the heavenly spirit flower array, my heart was in a mess. When he turned around, the blue door had already disappeared. I stood there all day and all night in a state of confusion. I don't know if we'll meet again in this life, but I'll wait. I'll wait forever.